Hi, I'm Nat.
And I'm Guy. And AmFest, we're going to talk everything that went down. We talked a little bit about what happened on Friday, but the drama kind of simmered down, and America First really came out to represent, especially JD Vance.
In your opinion?
I think in everybody's opinion, when I'm watching the receipts come in today, the receipts. Well, let's get into the first article because the first article was very interesting. It's talking about who was supposed to be JD Vance's running mate come the next election in 2028. And it was supposed to be Charlie Kirk.
Yes. From the Daily Mail, here we see Trump's secret secession plan to put Charlie Kirk in the Oval Office and groom a shock new VP. Republican power brokers had quietly mapped out a MAGA succession plan that would eventually put Charlie Kirk in the Oval Office, as we have heard since he was assassinated. A confidant of Donald Trump and Kirk has revealed to the Daily Mail. Until the plan was thwarted by Kirk's September assassination, JD Vance was slated to run in 2028 with Kirk as his vice president, and according to Turning Point USA board member Mike Miller, party leaders envisioned Kirk taking over as president 8 years later and grooming Donald Trump Jr. to become his VP. The whole gig was going to be JD Vance and Charlie for 8 years after Trump, and then the next 8 years was going to be Charlie and probably Don Jr., Miller said in an exclusive interview.
Yeah, and Charlie Kirk would have been the absolute perfect candidate for 2028, especially as vice president. He had the youth vote. He knew how to listen. JD Vance is happy to take on that role. I must admit he's doing a fairly good job, especially after seeing him on AmFest. I'm starting to really get on board with him. He's addressed a lot of the concerns about Palantir and other things head on. So as long as he keeps doing that, I think he's in a very good position. That being said, with Charlie gone now, I don't know who they're going to get for that VP role. It's going to be very concerning if JD Vance gets the wrong person in there. Now, I think Trump is going to want Trump Jr. in there, and I don't think that's a good match this soon after Trump. If they would have Charlie Kirk as the in-between figure for 8 years, he has a lot of allegiance to Trump, the Trump family, and he would have had no problem putting Trump Jr. in there. I think there's nobody else they can put in there, knowing that they can put Trump Jr. as the vice presidential candidate in 8 years. So I think he's going to really pressure JD to put Trump Jr. And I think if he pressures him, I think JD Vance is going to do it. I think he has loyalty and allegiance to Trump. And if Trump comes out against JD, it's not going to look good for 2028. The big question is, would I rather have Trump Jr. or Ivanka Trump? And for me personally, I would much rather have Ivanka Trump. I understand it might not be the best look because she's around the same age.
Yeah, optics-wise, we were just talking about that. Optics-wise, having Ivanka be so close in age to JD Vance, where they could almost look like they were a married couple, I think wouldn't be the best look. And as I always say, I think it's best to put men in the positions of running the country rather than women. And women, as we've seen in the U.S., even for the Democrats, don't get votes. So
yeah, I think she's much more of a compromise, especially for the moderates. She is the former Democrat. Her husband's very Democratic-minded as well. They live in New York. They have a lot of Democratic friends. They run in Democratic circles. I know that's not the best thing for everybody, but as far as the moderate vote goes, she would be perfect. She would also set her up for the first female president of the United States. Trump Jr. is just very, very decisive. He's very, very far right, which I do like, but that's good for one of the candidates. JD Vance already kind of fills that slot. Having a double JD, but a dumber version as in Trump Jr., I don't know if it's the best thing. Now, I do like Trump Jr., but I just don't want to see him get in this quick. I would have loved to see that in-between figure of Charlie Kirk leading into Trump Jr.
And as we spoken, Charlie really was the one that was bringing everybody together, was creating that Big Tent movement and moment, and especially with the youth. So now that he's gone, I don't think that he's replaceable at all, but there has to be some kind of figure that is able to come and do that. JD Vance has kind of been showing that he might be able to retain those America First values and bring in that foundation that America First has, but at the same time be a bit more diplomatic with the way he goes about it, rather than other things we saw during AmFest.
Well, I think there's one candidate, maybe two candidates that would be almost as good as Charlie Kirk, not quite there, but a good, solid candidate that would help propel JD into the 2028 presidency, and that would be RFK Jr. or Tulsi Gabbard. They've both kind of proven themselves as America First through their actions. They were former Democrats, so they have a broad appeal to the moderates. That being said, Trump's going to want one of his kids in there because he wants to avoid prosecution for himself or anybody else. So he wants to make sure his family dynasty is kind of set up. After Trump Jr., you can bring in a Barron. I think they need a stop. They want a stopgap for Barron.
Well, Barron Trump is the last president, according to myth and legend.
Well, if Barron could run right now, I think he would win. And that's the funny thing. I would vote for Barron. I absolutely love Barron. That being said, he's not old enough to even get the VP for quite a few years. Yeah.
But what do you think of maybe to appease the other side with all the infighting right now if they ran JD Vance with Marco Rubio as the VP?
Yeah, and we did talk about that earlier too. Marco Rubio he's a neocon. If you try to use him as a compromise candidate, the America First wing is going to get very angry at that. JD Vance would constantly have to watch his back. I think they would be looking to get rid of JD to propel Marco Rubio into the presidency. I do not want to see Marco Rubio there. And I don't think a lot of America First people do either. And I think that would continue the infighting. If JD Vance can come out early with a good America First candidate, I think that's going to be the ticket to go.
Because with Marco Rubio, they would have, and as Trump has mentioned, and we see continued movements towards the U.S. moving and caring more about Latin America. Marco Rubio is that special chess piece that a lot of the Latin American heads of state, presidents, etc., are in talks with and actually kind of respect and fear in a sort of way. So I don't know if they put someone else in there that they'd be able to do that. I don't like Marco Rubio. I'm just saying with the ongoing relationships and the relationship building also with Latin America, given how important it is for the America First strategy, they might need a Marco Rubio, especially because of the relationships he's already fostered and his hard line on immigration, for example, and also on the narco issue.
Okay, I'm going to make it very clear why we don't want Marco Rubio in there. And it's the same reason we need to come out hard in the midterms and get rid of Rhino Republicans and neocons. We need fresh blood. We need America First candidates that are going to put America first. If you put Marco Rubio in there as VP, what he's going to do, he comes from the traditional wing of the GOP, the Rhino Republicans. He's going to bring Susie Wild or a Susie Wild figure in there, and he's going to pick all the appointments because a lot of the traditional appointments are made by the GOP because they have so many people generation after generation that come from that wing of the party. They can easily fill those slots. And I think JD won't really have enough America First people to get in there. So you need two America First people in there really focusing on appointments of offices to really clear out the old dynasty of the neocons.
And as you mentioned during AmFest, JD Vance was one of the, if not the strongest speaker, aside from all the infighting and the going back and forth between Ben Shapiro and Megyn Kelly and then Steve Bannon and everybody else that came out to just do a drama fest. And I will say it's probably because Charlie wasn't there to keep everybody in line and have that figurehead to say, hey, stop it. But also because of, and I know you're going to say this is a woman thing, but the mourning process for everybody at Turning Point, I think, is still very raw, especially with an event where Charlie was always so in it and so there and with the planning and talking to all the people that were going to be there. So I do think they were kind of like chickens running wild, but because there's also that element of still mourning for Charlie, especially during an event that was so important for Charlie. I think for a lot of people, it did kind of trip them a little bit, aside from all the organizational issues. And I do think that is why we saw so much drama and so much back and forthing, because there was nobody there to say, stop it.
On the first day, there was drama, and it wasn't supposed to go that way. You see the America First candidates came out with good talking points, really represented as the weekend went on. One of the first major speakers was Ben Shapiro. He came out naming names and attacking the America First wing, who came out almost directly after him was Steve Bannon. And I don't think that
with Tucker first, who did a terrible, horrible job.
It was Tucker and Steve Bannon. I felt like they felt a responsibility to kind of push back against that. But after that first day of drama on Friday, it simmered down and the America First candidates really focused on what needed to be done. And what needed to be done is a compromise with the Jewish wing of the party to keep the Jewish money there, but to really set boundaries, because that's what a lot of the America First wing is kind of angry about. And it's the constant never ending wars of Israel and the funding of Israel. JD Vance is learning to set those boundaries. He went to Israel, but he didn't kiss the wall, which is good. When it comes to anti-Semitism, he says anti-Semitism is wrong, but if you want to criticize Israel, that's actually okay. The
if you want to criticize anybody, it should be
well,
okay.
but it's not, because they expanded the definition of anti-Semitism through the Anti-Defamation League to include Netanyahu and Israel. If you criticize those two things, that makes you anti-Semitic. But that's not the case traditionally. And JD Vance has kind of stated that he's really the compromise candidate. He also has the big tech wing. A lot of the big tech money actually comes from Israel as well. So they're okay with him. And he's walking a very strong and firm line. He's pushing back on Fuentes, yet he's taking the best points from Fuentes and actually using those as talking points. So I think overall, yeah, he's a good compromise candidate. And I think he's really starting to prove that. And now that Charlie's gone, he's realizing he's having to take on that role too. That's a lot to put on JD's shoulders, but at least he's realizing he's actually the one that has to do that and be the bigger person.
Plus, I think if JD and America First people took the line of not just Israel, but we have to stop funding all the other countries and stop also receiving money from those countries, that eventually does turn into some sort of compromise that the U.S. has to do, or some sort of infiltration of the U.S. or capturing of institutions, then that would play over, I think, way better than just focusing on Israel. Because if the message is America First means we just focus on America, and not Israel, but not the Catholic wing, not the Chinese people, not Qatar and everybody else, the UAE, everybody else that is also sending money over, but also receiving money from the U.S. If that is the line, I think that's much more amenable and much more diplomatic towards people that are sick and tired of just hearing Israel 24/7. But people complaining just about Israel, when it's a widespread problem that the U.S. has allowed during the whole globalism push to entertain different kinds of capturing of their institution and even of their institutions and even of the country itself.
Yeah, you're going to have to define what America First actually means, because it's not just America First and only America. Trump is defining it very well, with JD having a lot of input. It's the Western Hemisphere. And by putting other countries in the Western Hemisphere in prominent trade status, it should increase the strength of the U.S. by focusing on that region and focusing their strength on that region, making the other countries in that region strong, which will help strengthen the U.S. and help the U.S. actually block trade routes like the Panama Canal and other things from China. So overall, if you focus on the Western Hemisphere, it's a lot harder to get drawn into these never-ending wars. The distinctive problem with Israel is they have too much leverage over the U.S. without the U.S. Actually implementing leverage over them. And we're constantly getting drawn into never-ending wars. They're currently in 7 conflicts. We no longer want that. If there is a conflict in the Western Hemisphere, I think it can be dealt with quite strategically and fast by the U.S. to kind of end it, and it won't be a never-ending war.
And I think that's kind of what they have been trying to position the Ukraine war as it's a Western conflict. It involves NATO. All NATO nations have to actually band together, and the U.S. has to continue to pay most of the bill and foot the bill for every single other country that does want to continue that war for their own benefit. But that line also has to be drawn. What is Western, and what conflicts do you get involved in, and which ones you don't, and which should be none of them aside the ones that are directly impacting you.
Yeah, and they shouldn't be never ending. There should be a direct strategy, a goal that is a short-term goal. You meet that goal, draw out of the conflict. The Ukraine war is even more egregious than what's going on with Israel. I don't like the Israel wars at all, but at least they seem to be short-term conflicts. One strike on Iran, okay, we stop. The Ukraine war, Ukraine is one of the dirtiest countries. The money is just disappearing into a black hole. It's never ending. Europe wants to advance that war, draw the U.S. in, and that will really become a never ending war. At least with Israel, Trump seems to be able to walk a fine line and do a strike here and a strike there, and Israel backs off and say, okay, that's enough for now. So, but I want to see him pull out from all those regions, have those regions step up on their own behalf, really have Israel not have the U.S. backing how they do now. So they have to have peace in the region through economic deals. That was Trump's strategy originally, and it was working through the 7 Middle East peace accords. But since Netanyahu's really come into this warmongering phase of his, he doesn't want to focus on the economic deals. He wants to focus on more strategic war. So if Israel doesn't have undying backing from the United States, I think they'll become more entrenched in economic alliances rather than outright warfare. And I think that would be best for that region. As far as Europe, if Europe wants a war with Russia, they're going to be have the ones to do that. They need to finance that on their own. The U.S. needs to get out of NATO so they don't get drawn into that thing.
And I will say hello to our bot, Julia Collins. I won't read the garbage that she writes, but all lies, essentially.
Well, just read it. I like to respond to bots sometimes. We only have 2 viewers. One of them's me, so.
Julia Collins says 134 million female adults live in the U.S., but only 37 million of them voted for Trump, just 26%. The other 74% either didn't vote or didn't vote for a felon who was found to be liable for disgusting abuse.
Okay, yeah, well, I would say, yeah, a lot
It's a bot. I can't hear you.
Yeah, but somebody like Nicki Minaj would have probably voted the other way at some point, and now she's coming obviously over to JD Vance and the Conservative Party.
She's been doing that ever since the jibby jab era.
Yeah, but I think there's a lot of women that are starting to wake up and are going to become more conservative as we get towards the 2028
and realizing
election.
where the ways that they were voting and the feminism and the other things that they were propagandized with haven't really improved their lives. A lot of millennial women are actually starting to kind of say, not all of them, but a lot of them, some of them at least, are starting to see how now that they're entering their 30s, 40s, they're starting to see, hey, feminism did nothing for me. I'm more broke than ever. I didn't actually form a family, and I'm miserable day in, day out, having to take a bunch of antidepressants and having to talk to a therapist 24/7.
Yeah.
So that doesn't actually bode well for women. And I think the younger, hopefully Gen Z, but especially Gen Alpha, start to realize that faster, and that more millennial voices and people like Nicki Minaj, as much of a not fan as I can be of her beforehand at least, can continue to speak up.
We'll kind of get into her in a moment because I have some very distinct feelings on what happened there. That being said, the Democratic Party's talking points are really being exposed even to women. I don't think they're willing to vote for it. I think the Democratic Party needs that vote in order to win. Because women are seen through the lies of feminism, I think they're going to come right out and possibly either have a female presidential candidate or vice presidential candidate say, vote for me because I'm a woman, not because you agree with my actual principles.
And interestingly enough, during AmFest, both JD Vance and Nicki Minaj, which we just brought up, had this talking point of you shouldn't have to apologize for being white. You shouldn't have to apologize for sins of centuries past or decades past. So let's see first what JD Vance had to say. You don't want to go there yet.
Yeah, I do want to go there. I do want to talk about that. But this is the direct conflict that's going on between the Ben Shapiro wing and the America First wing. And JD Vance is really drawing a line in the sand here, actually saying it's okay to be white. White is a culture.
Well, white is a race. America is a culture, I would say.
Yeah, but okay, we'll disagree on that. Yeah.
White isn't a culture; it's a race.
There are multiple different white cultures, I would say.
Yes, but then those have individual names.
Yeah,
I wouldn't say white as a whole is a culture.
But I think
I'm kind of white, but I'm Mexican. The culture is very different.
You also don't live in the United States. I would say as white people have come under attack through DEI, ESG, and different schemes like this from the Democratic Party, they have now identified themselves as a race. And that's what's kind of been happening over the last 10 years.
Well, they were divided, especially, and it was divided into these political, what's it called? Identitarian groups, especially during Obama, and that's when those divisions started. But beforehand, I don't know if anybody would say in the U.S. that white was a culture.
White never really voted amongst racial lines. They're not into identitarian politics, but because that's what politics has come, every group has an identitarian politic group. Mm-hmm. White people were really kind of taken advantage of, attacked through DEI, and now they're starting to identify with an identitarian group.
Which is a problem. But let's see what JD Vance said about not having to apologize for that, be it a culture or a race at the end of the day. VP from Nick Sorter, quote, VP Vance says, in the United States, we do not have to apologize for being white anymore. And this was during his speech at AmFest.
Unlike the left, we stand against treating anybody. And I love what Nikki said about this. We don't treat anybody different because of their race or their sex. So we have relegated DEI to the dustbin of history, which is exactly where it belongs. In the United States of America, you don't have to apologize for being white anymore. And if you're an Asian, you don't have to talk around your skin color when you're applying for college, because we judge people based on who they are, not on ethnicity and things they can't control. We don't persecute you for being male, for being straight, for being gay, for being anything. The only thing that we demand is that you be a great American patriot, and if you're that, you're very much on our team.
There's a bunch of young people there.
There's
Guy kept saying that there were no young people at Turning Point.
No, I didn't say there was no young. I said typically every other year there was much more young people, and it's true, especially if you watch the individual interviews where they go into the crowd. It was maybe 20 to 30% young people, and it was a lot of older people, a lot of donor class, a lot of Republican class.
The shots that you're seeing is because the most expensive tickets were the ones at the front. Of course, that's going to be older, but in general, people walking the halls and talking to people there.
No, that's exactly what I'm saying. They're not. No. Yes. No, it's becoming more of a
because they still hand out kind of free or really reduced ticket prices to all their Turning Point USA chapters in colleges. So of course, a lot of people are going to be young.
It's not quite CPAC, but it's starting to turn into CPAC, where it's becoming much more of a donor class.
Again, those seated at the front, yes, of course.
I don't think you understand what TPUSA actually is, and it's the election wing of the Conservative Party. Mm-hmm. Because of that, it's naturally starting to have a major influx of the donor class.
I'd say it's one of the, but one of the.
Let me ask you a quick question. Yes. What's bigger, CPAC or AmFest?
It depends. Which event? Because they have AmFest or CPAC.
The biggest CPAC versus the biggest AmFest event.
I don't know where they do them, so I wouldn't be able to answer.
The AmFest is now the biggest. And because it's the biggest, the donor class is naturally drawn to that, and the big money comes into AmFest now rather than CPAC. Yes. CPAC is actually dying because of AmFest.
But what I'm saying is still there's a lot of young people that do go, especially because they get these reduced or free tickets.
Before the major donor money came in, it was all young people.
Now, but the major donor money has been coming in for years for Turning Point.
Not like it is now.
Well, no, of course, because their head, the main guy was assassinated. Yes. Of course, they're going to get a lot of money to support the effort he was
now that all the money that was going to go to CPAC is coming into AmFest, that donor class is now transitioning over to AmFest and TPUSA.
CPAC also had a lot of infighting, and we saw it with a very local example with Eduardo Verástegui and CPAC, the U.S., canceling the CPAC here because of a fight between Eduardo Verástegui, who's a figure here in Mexico, a right-wing figure, and Javier Milei. So their priorities are starting to be really weird.
Yeah, but I really watched the crowds. This isn't the first time I watched crowds. I watched crowds at the last two CPAC PACs as well in multiple different states. And CPAC has become more of the crazy radical wing of the Conservative Party, less and less of the donor class. The donor class has naturally been transitioning over the last few years, but en masse this year to TPUSA and AmFest. CPAC used to be the donor wing of the Conservative Party. Now it's TPUSA.
But that's a negative
I'm saying it's no longer has as many young people because they're serving more to the donor class.
Well, they're letting the donor class sit up front, of course.
Not just sit up front. They're absolutely everywhere. They're dominating the event.
Okay, let's continue and see what J.D. Vance said about the Democrat Party. From Greg Price, quote, J.D. Vance perfectly sums up Democratic politicians. Also during his speech at AmFest. No, hold on. There we go.
But ask yourself, what do all of these people have in common? And the unfortunate answer is they are puppets. They don't actually matter. They are cogs in a machine that wants to make you poorer, that wants to make you less powerful, and wants to make you less safe in the country your ancestors built. And while President Trump and I are doing everything we can to break that machine, the left is still there, my friends, and they are still very powerful. Don't delude yourselves. It's the activist groups who want to poison your kids with hormone replacement therapy and toxins in your water supply. It's the corporate boardrooms pushing diversity quotas while whining about the fact that Donald Trump won't let them ship American jobs overseas anymore, and boo-hoo to that. It's the rogue district judges who issued nationwide injunctions every time the president lifts a finger. It's the Soros DAs who cheered on as their cities burn. What unites them? They win when our country loses. They get rich when you get poorer. They hire the illegals that they bring in to take your jobs. They drink fine wine in the countries they ship your jobs to. They censor you because they'd rather destroy the Constitution than risk losing an argument. They bring in millions of voters because they know they can't win the argument with the people who are already here. And you know what else unites them? We are going to kick their ass next November and every year after that.
And that's exactly the America First talking points. That's what the young people want to hear. He hit it note for note. That's what the Ben Shapiro wing, this is what the classical Rhino GOP wing does not want to hear. They
still say that.
But they don't. No, they don't. They want a lot of things opposite than that. They want a lot of external money going to NGOs to other countries. They don't want America focusing on America so strong because then they're going to see a lot of the corruption that has happened to America. What J.D. Vance said there was a strong line in the sand. I am an America First candidate. And if he takes another America First candidate as his VP, I think he's going to have an easy time rolling in. If he doesn't have another America First candidate or somebody tries to leapfrog J.D. Vance, we're going to see more infighting. We have to remember Ben Shapiro was a never Trumper. He wants to see a Rubio in there. They're going to want to see a Rubio-like figure rather than J.D. Vance, or put a Rubio-like figure with J.D. Vance in order to soften those talking points. They don't want J.D. Vance going in that direction as hard as he just went in that speech. They're going to want to try to corrupt him in some way, shape, or form.
Speaking of corrupting, somebody that was corrupted a while ago, at least, or seemed so, at least during public appearances, was Nicki Minaj. And funnily enough, she showed up at AmFest. Ever since the Jibby Jab era, she has been speaking up more, speaking up her mind, and speaking up also for Christianity. But now it's like a full front speech that she gave and actually kind of defining a position of where she stands politically, which, again, while I'm not a fan of artists showcasing where they stand politically, be it on either side, I don't think that that's their role. It was interesting, at least, to see her there. But you said you had more opinions about it.
Yeah, I got a lot of more opinions. The fact that what she talked about and the way she talked was just completely fake or phony. She sounds like the old Nicki Minaj and looks like the old Nicki Minaj trying to give conservative talking points. That being said, she could have a major role here, and she could represent a direction for a lot of other artists and people coming out of Hollywood to come over to the conservative movement, talk about the mistakes of their past, how they now have kids, how they've changed, how they found Christianity. She has found Christianity and how she's changing her life, and kind of expose the Democratic Party, expose Hollywood, expose the music industry, but speak from a place of truth and relate it to her own personal experiences and things that have happened to her, rather than getting on stage and talking about assassin J.D. Vance. I know she misspoke there, but obviously she's just trying to kiss up to the Republican Party, to the conservative movement. I think there's a real person under there that is finding Christianity. She doesn't have to appeal to all these talking points. She can just be herself and talk about the mistakes of her past, and that there's a redemption arc there, not just for herself as an artist, but for a lot of other people to come over to the conservative movement, to Christianity, and have a redemption arc because of the mistakes they made in their past. And that's what I would like to see, a lot more real layer of Nicki Minaj. I don't know if that even exists, but it definitely wasn't on display with her speech that she gave.
And we do know, well, Kamala Harris did come out to speak out against Nicki Minaj and the celebrity drama issue of this whole her speaking at AmFest. But I also think that there have been not a lot, but a few artists that have come out and gotten baptized. I'm thinking Kat Von D and a few others that were pretty famous, Russell Brand as well. And I don't know if it always works out for them as they think it will. It is good to see them improving themselves and, I guess, finding God. But at the same time, I don't think the infrastructure is set up for that journey to be displayed as strongly yet, or for people to agree with it as strongly yet. I think it's being worked on, but we're not there yet.
Yeah, I'll disagree. I think the infrastructure isn't set up for them to come over, or people like Minaj to come over, but the old infrastructure is dying because of AI, because of what's happening to Hollywood, what's happening to the music industry. Major record labels can't promote as many big artists, but they have all these artists on contract. So a lot of these artists are feeling neglected, feeling like they're being used, yet they're not making any money. So they're going to want to make a break for the independent scene. And if they do that, it's going to be the conservative movement or the Christian movement can welcome them with open arms, and then they can go on their musical journey themselves through independent media. But I think because the old guard that was holding the Democratic encased with contracts through the record industry, through Hollywood, stuff like that. There's not as many contracts to go around. There's not as many big movie contracts, music contracts to go around. So a lot of these artists are now going to have to do it on their own on YouTube. And I don't think a lot of them have the natural opinions that align with the Democratic Party. And if they're left to their own devices, I think they would rather come over to the conservative movement because it's a lot more honest.
But Nikki has been speaking against the ending of Christians all around the world for a few times now. She's been publicly doing speeches about it.
And this, I will say, this was the better part of the speech when she did speak about Christianity. But a lot of her opening speech, she just absolutely flubbed. Like, she had to say people's names. She had to kiss up to Trump. She had to kiss up to Vance. And it just wasn't authentic. This was the most authentic part of her speech, I believe.
So Nick Sorter says, Nicki Minaj, quote, Nicki Minaj goes to bat for Christians at AmFest.
Receive that, bullies. We won't be silenced ever again. We will speak up for Christians wherever they are in this world.
Amen. Amen. I don't know if you can see this at home, but she's getting a ton of standing ovations.
I love you guys so much. Thank you guys. Receive
And
that.
what I'm saying is, yeah, that's,
She is funny, though.
that is the most authentic part of her speech, but it still wasn't real because she didn't relate it to personal stories of what happened to her in Hollywood. Why is she walking away? That would really connect with young people, connect with a lot of people in the conservative movement, and really have us embrace a Nicki Minaj-like figure. But when she stands up there and just gives platitudes for a lot of the speech and doesn't come off as authentic, except for one little part where she just mentions Christianity, if she really connected it to why she's coming back to Christianity, why she's living Hollywood, it's funny to think, but Nicki Minaj is a figure that would have a redemption arc and that we would welcome into the movement. And there's a lot of other people from Hollywood that can have that same redemption arc.
But I guess, I mean, it was her, like, her first time really walking into the belly of the beast. And I understand it's probably pretty nerve-wracking. And again, yes, she performs in front of a bunch of people, but these are all people that probably have spoken or think negatively of her usually or generally. So going up against a room of people, a giant room of people that probably you think don't like you is, I would say, pretty nerve-wracking. Not that I'm making excuses for her, but I think this is the first time she's had to do something like this so openly and for the world to see.
Yeah, and I will also say...
So I do get, but again, I would take Nicki Minaj 1,000 times over Candace Owens. Just make her the Candace Owens. Put her doing Candace Owens' show.
Yeah, but I do understand TPUSA events and CPAC events are very structured, somewhat phony. They get up there, they say their platitudes, but there are a lot of content creators and stuff there. The problem is people like Nicki Minaj coming from big Hollywood have handlers like the work with big studios, stuff like that. If she would work with independent content creators for really intimate sit-down interviews, what she talks about, why she came over to the conservative movement, the mistakes of her past within the Democratic Party or within the music industry, it would give that next layer she really needs to really connect with the audience over here.
Did she go on Rogan or not yet? I think she did, didn't she?
I'll
check in a bit.
Yeah.
But another one that has divided opinions, I will say, and I do like Bannon usually, but people there were saying he was getting booed and nobody was clapping. But then other people online were saying that his speech was great. So let's kind of see and talk about the divisions again with this internal conservative civil war that we're witnessing with, again, who can we believe? With the people there that were not clapping and that were booing him, or the people that actually do like online and more other voices that didn't go to AmFest that are saying that is a direction that should be taken.
Yeah, I also think Bannon was attacked by Ben Shapiro and he had to come out and defend himself and America first. I don't think that was supposed to be his original speech. I think it was supposed to be something that was much more J.D. Vance akin, what the speech J.D. Vance gave. I think Steve Bannon is the brainchild of the populist movement that elected Trump. I think he's going to connect himself with J.D. Vance. I think that's a very important connection. That being said, behind the scenes, Steve Bannon is really corrupt, but he knows how to get populist talking points into a candidate to get him elected, which is important.
So let's see what he said.
One of the other problems with Bannon is when he was with the Trump administration, he made extremely bad appointments of neocons into the first administration, and that's why the first administration failed. That being said, I absolutely do love Steve Bannon.
From Bannon's War Room, quote, Bannon holds nothing back on Ben Shapiro. But again, I would say that the mistake continued to be there on having to attack each other.
Yeah, but it's...
And not being the diplomat that J.D. Vance was able to be.
Yeah, but that was the first day. This all happened on the first day on Friday. Tucker Carlson and Bannon went there directly after Ben Shapiro. The next couple days, the America First candidates didn't focus on the drama.
Now, Benji Shapiro sat up here last night, and he was all, I'm going to, it's all about the truth. Ben, I've known you a long time, brother. You can't handle the truth.
There's the boots.
I thought
Let's
it was
face it, Ben Shapiro is the farthest thing from MAGA. Let's be blunt. He is a hardcore never Trumper. He's a hardcore never Trumper. In the spring of 16, he tried to upend Breitbart. He walked off the job, made a big deal about some incident in Mar-a-Lago with Corey Lewandowski. He tried to turn it to Ted Cruz from Donald Trump because he hated Donald Trump. In the general election, he barely supported Donald Trump. The first sign of when President Trump gets sent back to Mar-a-Lago, the very first individual that jumped on the Ron DeSantis train, the Israel First train, was Ben Shapiro. And those are the darkest days we had. In 21 and 22, you guys were there. He's consistently been against Trump, and now that President Trump doesn't back the Greater Israel Project. What is Greater Israel? It's not about Israel itself. It's about an expansionist Israel, an imperial Israel that Netanyahu and that crowd have thought up. And the Israel First crowd is Ben Shapiro, Tel Aviv, Mark Levin, and many others that want to put that ahead of America's interests.
And he's right with everything he said there. Every time there was another opportunity for any candidate other than Trump and the America First movement, Ben Shapiro pushed him hard as hell. And I guarantee you, if there's an opening where there's a chink in J.D. Vance's armor and Rubio has an opportunity to get in there, say there's actually an election for the 2028 candidate, Ben Shapiro is going to get behind Marco Rubio or maybe even a Ron DeSantis again. He does not want a J.D. Vance, especially after J.D. Vance's speech.
But aside from the infighting, I'm going to ask you and propose something or a different way to see this. Isn't it also good to have that sort of opposition, those checks and balances within MAGA and the Republican Party itself to keep each side kind of with those checks and balances and in a way in check? So you do need a little bit of opposition, a few people that are against what you're doing to also strengthen your own points and also maybe even seem like you're winning maybe more than you are. So I do think it is important to keep the more traditional rhino people to have the checks and balances on MAGA whenever they're actually messing up, because Ben Shapiro has called out things that eventually everybody else did call out. And again, I'm not a fan of Ben Shapiro. I'm not trying to defend him. I'm just saying you can't have sycophants and you can't have
That's not what we want.
a king that everybody has to respect
That's
and
not
can't
what
go
we're saying.
against even on public airwaves.
No.
And that is what Bannon was complaining about. He was like, you were never Trump, you never liked him. Well, that's fine. He can have that opinion. He can be against Trump, and that can actually sharpen the blade.
No, absolutely. It's not going to sharpen the blade. It's fine to have a bigger tent movement and compromise with some things, but you need America First candidates. And right now, America First is defining themselves. And hold on. And there are different wings of the America First movement. J.D. Vance is distinctively a different wing than a Nick Fuentes is.
Nick Fuentes is
So
all the way over there.
And Marco Rubio is all the way over there. I would much rather have a Nick Fuentes than a Marco Rubio. I'll say that.
But again, you need both to get the best ideas and the best candidates pushed forward. You can't say we have to get rid of these people because they don't.
Nobody's saying get rid of them.
Fit inside America First.
They'll stick with the America First movement when there's no other choices. They've shown that in the past. When Trump pushed all the other rhinos out of the way and took that spot, who did they vote with?
But what I'm saying is it is important to have those checks and balances.
You can have different personalities. I don't want neocons. They're going to put, it's too dangerous.
No, I'm not saying put them up front. I'm not saying make them candidates. I'm saying let them speak so it actually sharpens the positive good points that the other side is trying to make.
And I'm saying that's fine. What I'm saying is not acceptable is to put Marco Rubio as a vice presidential candidate.
When did we talk about Marco? I was talking about
Well,
having an opposition.
It doesn't matter if they have a voice. Let them have a voice at the thing. You just can't give them a position of power at the table.
I know, but what I'm saying is saying that he was a never Trumper shouldn't be even a talking point, because we do
Hold
need
on.
people that try to go push against Trump, because that actually sharpened him and sharpened all the people that did want to support Trump and showed how wrong the others were. You need checks and balances
if that's what you-
within a system that actually functions.
If that's what you think,
You can't have sycophants that everybody's for X, Y, or Z.
if that's what you think, and then Marco Rubio actually has a chance to leapfrog JD Vance because he has Ben Shapiro supporters, and nobody kind of called out
Ben Shapiro
hold
has
on,
3 supporters.
and nobody called out Ben Shapiro on this.
But that's the thing. I do think people should call out on the point, not on saying, oh, it's bad that you were never Trump, or say it's
It is bad.
because here are all the examples of the positive things that
No,
happened.
why it's bad that he was a never Trumper is every time there was another candidate that could have potentially taken Trump out, and that could have happened at any one of those points with the right scandal, we would have had a Nikki Haley in there or a Marco Rubio. That's why it's very important to point out that Ben Shapiro was a never Trumper, and if he's given the opportunity again, he's going to try to push in a rhino neocon and press for war.
But again, it helps show why those points are bad. If you just chastise them and say you have to be on the side of the guy that we're on, then you can't point out that the big mistakes that all these people have done by supporting Ron DeSantis or Nikki Haley, etc.
I just said he should have a voice. What I said that shouldn't happen.
But what I'm saying is the whole "you're never Trumper" shouldn't be a talking point.
That
because
definitely-
he proved himself wrong all by himself.
No, it's when he's saying he's a never Trumper, it's not that he's just never Trumper. He doesn't have an America first value set. Then that's been obvious. So when you say somebody's a never Trumper, what you're actually saying is they don't have an America first value set, which he doesn't. He has an Israel first value set, which was very distinctively put up by Steve Bannon. Not a lot of people will get on the stage and actually say that.
Okay.
So when we say he's a never Trumper, it's just a nice way of saying he's Israel first, not America first.
Okay. Israel. Everything's Israel's fault. The only talking point they have apparently is Israel.
I always defend the Jews.
No, it's not about Jewishness or not. It's about the talking point that's getting
go against
real
Netanyahu.
for a lot of people, including me. A lot of people are tired of it's just Israel. It's just Israel. Talk about all of the funding from everywhere else.
Who
well.
else gets $4 billion a year? China doesn't get that. Russia doesn't
China
get that.
gets a lot more than that.
No, they don't.
Yeah, they
do. They give money. They don't take money.
They also take money.
No.
Yes, through different investments and et cetera, exports, imports, but they do.
Investments. They get direct funding from the U.S., $4 billion a year. China does not get that.
Ukraine get?
Ukraine doesn't get it year after year on a consistent basis.
They have in the past few years during the war.
That's because they're part of NATO.
But again,
or the NATO allies want to give them.
Well, that's the problem. People
We
are focusing too much on one thing.
100% are.
Who's we?
The biggest, the America First wing of the movement. Ukraine is the biggest problem. We want to see that war end. That's number one problem. But as soon as that's done, we need to focus on Israel because that's the number 2 foreign investment dollars that are going out.
Okay. Let's watch Kash Patel and, not Kash Patel. Let's watch James O'Keefe, also from AmFest, from Carly Bond saying James O'Keefe leaves a voicemail for Kash Patel. I did not see this. What is this? Do you want to intro it or no?
Oh, you can play it. It will kind of describe itself here.
Okay.
Can't shut you up. What do? They use the justice system to target you. And as you all know, I was raided by the FBI 4 years ago. I'm going to tell you something you may not know. This was the video of the raid against my colleagues 4 years ago. Banging on the door at 6 a.m. So after this happened, this March, I said this in July to SAS, the administration did in fact release the affidavit in my case so we can finally see what the justification of the probable cause was to raid a newsroom. We're the only newsroom in American history to be raided by the FBI, and there better be a good reason for it. So I was very excited to see that probable cause. My lawyer called me in March and sent me the document 3 pages long. And I was very excited to see the reason why the Federal Bureau of Investigation would point guns at journalists in America just because they don't like what stories they're working on. And I opened up my email to the 3-page probable cause, and this is what I saw. In fact, the only thing not redacted on the 3-page probable cause.
Yeah, and this administration has been doing a lot of good things, but it's been a regular occurrence now from Kash Patel and Pam Bondi to give out these completely redacted documents, whether it's the Epstein files or this James O'Keefe case. Like, they say they're declassifying things and then everything comes blacked out.
Was a footnote written by one of the FBI agents who put me in handcuffs, and it said, quote, I, at the FBI, have learned that cell phones are capable of sending emails. I hesitated to show you this photo. You might think, well, that's offensive, James O'Keefe. Why would you do that? Why would you say these offensive things? Well, when you've been through what I've been through, when you've been sued 50 times, raided by the FBI, arrested by the FBI, spending $5 million a year defending yourself, making lawyers rich, the American Bar Association is corrupt, it's a joke, you start to realize, because of stuff like this is a national disgrace. The Republicans have the White House, the Congress, the Senate, the Attorney General's office. You know what they say? Call Kash, call Kash, call Kash, call Pam, call Kash. You know Kash? Okay, I got Kash's cell phone number right here, and I'm going to call him and ask him why this thing is not redacted.
And pause it. And I think he did this very intentionally, because now everybody knows he called Kash. So next time Kash is interviewed, I'm expecting them to ask, did he ever respond to this? And then they're going to ask James O'Keefe, did you ever get a response? So an answer is going to have to come to this, and some accountability. Hopefully it comes to the situation.
Call Kash, call Kash, call Pam Bondi, call Kash. It's a disgrace. We should be better than this. I'm going to leave him a voicemail. He seems like a nice guy. I've met him, read his book. I support him. Maybe it's the people who work for him that do this. But if you're the leader, you cannot stand for this in the United States of America. We need politicians with balls.
To voicemail. The person you're trying to reach is not available. At the tone, please record your message. When you have finished recording, you may hang up.
Hi, Kash Patel. This is James O'Keefe. I'm standing in front of 10,000 students at the AmFest. I've come to understand from sources in D.C. that there were confidential FBI informants at Project Veritas, the company I founded, and they were trying to sabotage my operation. I've also understand that the reason why this is not redacted is because the FBI, quote, wants to protect its sources and methods. It creates a constitutional crisis when you send FBI sources and informants to disrupt the newsroom. My right to see the sources supersedes whatever marginal privacy concern the FBI has for its sources and methods. I demand that you unredact this affidavit immediately for the public's right to know. Thank you.
Okay, you can leave it there. And
Was he wearing a wig?
yeah,
Why does he look so weird?
He's in disguise. He always wears a disguise.
Okay.
That being said, that is the kind of energy you want from the America First Wing when they get in. Hold people accountable even within your own side. And people are starting to hold Kash Patel specifically accountable because of the mistakes after mistakes he's made, him and Pam Bondi.
And another one that also kind of spoke up about the deep state and etc. was Ana Paulina Luna from Dumb Lucre. Quote, Rep. Ana Paulina exposed the deep state and the WEF's plan to create a technocrat future, which we are seeing already, ruled by globalists. Everything is being exposed now. What an era this is. I think more could be exposed.
And I like Ana Paulina Luna a lot more than you do because she focuses on declassification of UFOs and things of this nature. So she actually comes up a lot within the conspiracy community.
I want candidates that will embrace fellow politicians from around the world who believe in the sovereignty of their nations and the inalienable rights of their citizens, their people, and understand that technocracy and globalism is not the way. Which is why in March, I'm happy to announce, after meeting with some members of the AfD, and don't listen to the media, the AfD are not Nazis, they are not alt-right, they are simply people that believe in saving Germany. But not just them, members from around the world, whether it's South America, the European Union, Australia, and even South Africa, that we will have an alliance conference of sovereign nations in Washington, D.C., where we will be bringing in hopefully hundreds of members from these countries, because Davos think tanks and the World Economic Forum think the Great Reset is a good idea, and it's not. It's creepy, and they can keep their bug-eating dystopian freak show politics to themselves. We don't want it.
And pause it. And this is not just a speech she gives. This is her consistent energy when she goes on interview after interview. She will go down conspiracy rabbit holes and talk about subjects other people in the administration won't. So this isn't a show. I like when she does speak.
No, that was it.
Oh, okay.
Just the clapping.
And so as we can see, I mean, other than Tucker Carlson and Steve Bannon that came out that really attacked Ben. It's been America First candidate after America First candidate after America First candidate, all with different niches that they're kind of in, whether it's James O'Keefe really holding the administration accountable, or Anna Paulina talking about the World Economic Forum and the globalist, or Tulsi Gabbard talking about the endless wars. The America First wing of the party really dominated this event once it was all said and done. And
speaking of Tulsi, again, that was another one that did pretty well with his speech. Eric Doherty says, quote, "Holy see, DNI and Tulsi Gabbard just said the EU and NATO are trying to drag us into war with Russia, and the deep staters are obstructing peace negotiations." Also at AmFest. Shall we watch it?
Yeah.
Hold on.
But what I've seen over these months is that every time they make progress and they move closer and closer to that hope for peace, the warmongers in the deep state step up and try to do everything they can to stop them. Predictably, they use the same old tactics that they've always used. The deep state within the intelligence community weaponizes intelligence to try to undermine progress. They leak it to their friends in the mainstream propaganda media to try to spread this and push a false narrative. They foment fear and hysteria as a way to justify the continuing of the war and their efforts to undermine President Trump's efforts towards peace, and do so specifically in this case in order to try to pull the U.S. military into a direct conflict with Russia, which is ultimately what the EU and NATO want. We cannot allow this to happen. We have to see clearly what's happening before our very eyes and stand united in this cause of peace.
And she is a big reason we haven't been drawn further into this war in Ukraine. It's a shame the neocons have blocked her in every turn, and they still have their hooks into this administration to a very deep degree where they're able to freeze her out on a lot of her policies. I hope she doesn't feel disgruntled come 2028 and run as an independent candidate or go back to the Democratic Party and try to re-reform them, because I think she will pull off votes from moderates in the Conservative Party. She's done a good job. I just wish they did. The neocons within the administration haven't messed with her to the degree that they have.
Do you think she'd be a good VP under Vance?
She's the one female candidate that men would actually vote for and have respect for.
I don't know. I still think it's a big.
I think people would vote. I think people would vote for Trump's daughter, Ivanka. But they would vote for her because of Trump. Mm-hmm. Tulsi's the one female candidate that can really stand on her own 2 feet and actually get votes. As a vice presidential candidate, I mean, if they're lacking somebody, she would be a good candidate.
But I do still think it's best to just run 2 guys.
RFK, by far and away, would be the best candidate. But he's done the most in this administration.
I think it would remind, just like in the back of their heads, I think it would remind people too much of Biden and Obama. Like, it's just like the old guy as a VP and the younger guy as a president. It's too similar to Obama.
I've put up 3 or 4 good candidates that I would like for VP, whether it's RFK or Tulsi Gabbard or even Ivanka Trump. I mean, who is 1 or 2 possible candidates you see that would be good?
I think they might try to run Marco Rubio. Not that I think it's a good idea, but I think that's what they might have to do.
That's not my question to you. My question to you is, what's 1 or 2 candidates that would be acceptable for you as a VP candidate?
I mean, I'd love to see Byron Donalds up there, but I don't think they'd ever do that.
I don't like Byron Donalds. But I'd say with Marco Rubio, I don't think JD Vance is going to allow that happen, because he's going to have to look over his shoulder, especially after what happened to Trump twice.
Sorry, my computer died. It's fine.
Especially after what happened to Trump twice, they tried to end his life. Mm-hmm. If JD Vance has any inkling of that, and with a Marco Rubio there, he's always going to be thinking that. Because
that's the one guy.
JD Vance, the deep state will absolutely hate, but they will absolutely love Rubio. So they're going to try to convince Vance with everything they have. Take Rubio as a candidate.
Mm-hmm. That's what I'm saying. That's who I think they're actually going to run.
And if he accepts that, there's a good chance he might catch a bullet.
Speaking of crazy people and catching bullets, I didn't know how to segue into this, but There's more wrinkles in the Candace Owens saga and drama, and it seems more and more that more people are starting to wake up, including, funnily enough, Alex Jones, who was, in this occasion, a little bit late to the party, in my opinion, with the whole Candace Owens situation, and finally trying to also, as many people online have been able to do, in my opinion, successfully, debunk most of her claims and start speaking about what she's actually saying and the repercussions, but also the lack of evidence that isn't there, I guess.
I think the evidence is there. I've kind of stuck by Candace this whole way. This most recent event where she brought this guy on the show and really stuck her reputation on him
The guy that kind of looks like a fraud.
Could be a death knell for Candace Owens. That being said, because I have supported Candace Owens, I have looked into all the other people that are kind of doing research and evidence, and they didn't stick next to this guy as much. So I think the investigations will continue. I just don't know how much credibility Candace Owens is going to have after this whistleblower kind of came out and his history is being revealed in real time.
And I think the same will happen with the lack of evidence or the nitpicking on ridiculous details, in my opinion, of their investigation to every single other person that is trying to, in my opinion, capitalize off of the assassination of Charlie Kirk and their investigations into it.
They also need to get this trial underway, because I think as the trial comes out, if the evidence actually lines up with the situation that happens, the evidence that we haven't seen, a lot of these doubters may go away. That being said, Tyler Robinson today just tried to get the prosecutor stricken from the case because the prosecutor got emails from his family or from a family member. So that could delay the case even longer if they have to find a whole new prosecutor. I really hope this at least is started before the midterms. I don't think it will be, though.
Well, I mean, there's another hearing back in March, I think, or May. One of the months it starts with them. I haven't super been keeping track of it either, but let's see what Alex Jones came out to say.
This is quite a long
recently.
clip, so we're only going to play a little bit of it.
It's not that long. It's
Oh,
a
sorry.
minute.
I got the shorter one. There was another 20-minute one I thought I grabbed.
From Dom Lucas says, quote, Alex Jones just said he is releasing what he considers a damning report on Candace Owens after Jones debunked the Egyptian plane theory a few days ago. Jones alludes to Owens implicating the military, and that will lead to the end of all of this.
As most of you that pay attention know, I am not the internet police. I don't infight. I don't try to focus on what other people are theorizing about or doing. I try to focus on what I'm doing. And so it's with the heavy.
No.
Okay, I'll kind of talk about this. This was actually a clip from a couple of days ago. He's actually come out with his full report and exposed the whistleblower. Candace kind of staked her reputation on.
No.
Okay.
And so it's with a heavy heart that I am forced to put out another report, either tonight or tomorrow morning. We're adding a lot of information right now, a lot more research, dealing with Candace Owens. Just as soon as the whole Egyptian plane thing gets debunked with all the facts, now she's moved to something else, and I'm really worried about her. I'm worried about her and her mind, and I'm also worried about the country and where this is going. It's good to question Charlie Kirk's assassination. I have. Big questions. We know Cash Patel covered up an investigation to accomplices. I broke that. I'm up before it hit the mainstream news. So I'm not saying no question. But her latest source and what she's done, implicating the U.S. military and all this other stuff, is just so damaging. And when you investigate it, it's so crazy. And just like with the Egyptian plane, she says she has the metadata, then publish it. And when she did publish it,
Okay, and you can kind of leave it there. That being said, that could.
And she didn't fully publish.
That being said, that could be a big problem. What he just said, Cash Patel did kind of cover up the accomplices and didn't go into that route because Cash Patel thought there wasn't enough evidence and he wanted a slam dunk case. If Candace starts digging into the other people that were involved, and this does become what you kind of said it was, a left-wing conspiracy amongst a bunch of trans radicals, and it came out that Cash actually let a lot of these people go, that will be another scandal.
Or that they were assets, or that they were known to the FBI, as many of these have been over the past few assassination attempts on Trump and other characters that have come out recently. For example, the multiple trans shooters, that a lot were actually known to the FBI.
Yeah, and if some people, because I have stuck with Candace and I've watched her, I'll continue to watch her, but this latest wrinkle that kind of came out, her staking her reputation on this guy, I'm not quite as interested in her theories, but there is another gentleman named Baron Coleman who was a defense attorney and a lawyer. Hold on. He's really doing a lot of good research.
He's one of those that nitpicks on tiny little details that make no sense.
But I'd say he's much more grounded than Candace Owens is. So if you are interested in looking at different evidence and rabbit holes, I would recommend Baron Coleman a lot more than I would Candace Owens at this point.
Okay, then let me recommend the opposite side. Go follow Paramount Tactical, because he's actually going into and having people coming on, different experts, actual experts that still work in their fields, to discuss and debunk a lot of the insanity that is going on with people like whatever his name.
Yeah, and you should watch both sides.
Yes,
and now you have recommendations for both sides. But the longer this goes on, Candace is slowly losing credibility. But
Slowly? Very
it-
quickly.
Slowly, in my opinion.
And not losing, continuing to not have.
But a lot of her investigations actually coming from Baron Coleman now that I'm realizing as well.
So again, she's just putting the stupidity on a bigger platform.
No.
Yes.
But she's going a step further and really staking a reputation on people that she probably shouldn't have. A lot of other people that are investigating haven't staked their reputation on him.
No, but I'm not going to go into it any further. However, do go watch Paramount Tactical. And again, it is interesting now that more people
are you upset he's
are speaking and waking up regarding Candace Owens and even the people that supported her for such a long time. I do think bringing on this guy, Mitch Snow or something like that, was kind of the proof that a lot of people did need to say, hey, and again, a lot of it wasn't just Alex Jones that discovered the information about this guy. It was actually a lot of people online, internet sleuths, as you would call it, doing the exact same thing that Candace is doing, but to the guy that she had on. And it does seem like this guy is just a actually crazy conspiracy theory guy that wants to get money from strangers as much as he can.
Well, and I also think people like Baron Coleman, other people that are doing the investigation, aren't doing it in a way that's causing as much division as Candace Owens at this point, because a lot of this isn't panning out. She staked her reputation on somebody that looks like they may be lying, and they have lied in the past a lot. She's causing a lot of division that's not really needed right now, but I'm still going to watch people that do investigate.
Sure. Again, if you want to go see somebody else that does investigate, go follow
Baron Coleman.
Gary Melton at Paramount Tactical, and also Phoenix Ammunition. They do shows together.
Let's continue on here, though.
Regarding the 30-06, go watch that one. That one was pretty interesting. But another thing that was pretty interesting over the weekend was 2 fights this weekend that were interesting for people, especially those that are chronically online, which was Andrew Tate and also the fight between, what's his name?
Jake Paul and Anthony Joshua.
I'm not into fights.
Okay, but both these are actually in the conservative content creator space, so that's kind of how it's related here. I will say this, Andrew Tate fought a gentleman that doesn't know how to fight. His highlights were absolutely ridiculous. He literally hits like a girl. Andrew Tate should have absolutely wiped the floor with him. At least Jake Paul has an excuse because Anthony Joshua is literally twice his size and one of the best heavyweights in the world. Andrew Tate was equal size with this guy, and Andrew Tate lost the fight. He got beat up in the process. It's a shame. The one good thing I would say that came out of Andrew Tate is the way he addressed the loss. He's done a few interviews since then. He said, I'm a lot older. I have no excuses to make. I'm going to get up. I'm going to keep going. I'm going to keep training, but I'm not the man that I used to be. And he's come out straight out and said that, which is really the way to address a loss and get better.
Do we watch him say it?
Yeah, but I'll say this. If you watch this fight, it was embarrassing for Andrew Tate.
Yeah, I'm 10 years out, 4 years old. Gave it my all, but he's tough. I don't know what to say. He's really tough. Congratulations to him.
Do you think we'll be able to see you in here again?
Yeah, I'm going to have to go back, watch the fight, make a decision, but Chase deserves this way, and I'm really happy for him, genuinely.
Do you have a message to all the fans back home that are watching you?
Better to try and lose than not try at all.
Thank you very much, Andrew.
Yeah, and that was a good messaging in a loss. I will say he does have a lot of followers, and I understand a lot of people don't like him, but for males that do look at him, when they do actually have a loss in life, that's kind of how you want to address it. So he's kind of leading by example, at least in this case.
And just a reminder, you used to teach and train and know a lot about boxing and fighting, etc. So
Yeah, I used to teach jiu-jitsu. I did it for probably 20 years. I used to work in an MMA gym. That being said, this was a very embarrassing fight for Andrew Tate. He even said going into the fight, he's never had more money or more time to prepare for a fight, and he was going to destroy this guy, and it was completely the opposite. That being said, I did like how he addressed it, even though he lost on the losing end, not just in that interview, but he's done multiple sit-down interviews since then. The next
is there
one,
any proof that he was ever good?
yeah,
Did
he
just
was
say that
he was a multiple champion. Even Joe Rogan said he was a very good fighter. He used to be a very good fighter. This is what happens when you get old. And he really, you can tell by his physique. He lifts a lot of weights. He trains for looks a lot. A lot of the times when you train for looks, you're not going to have as functional as a muscle. He probably didn't do as much cardio as he needed to. He said he was extremely tired after the first 2 rounds. That was obvious.
And then we also did see, well, you watched, I was kind of just peripherally there because I don't care that much about fighting the Jake Paul, what was his name?
Yeah.
Anthony Joshua fight. I do like Anthony Joshua. He's funny. I've seen interviews of him just as a normal human being. But that also happened.
And even in a loss, I guess you get respect. You normally would have, but this was extremely embarrassing for Jake Paul as well. This was the only really, really big shot of the fight, and it broke Jake Paul's jaw. There was an x-ray that came out of it. So I do hope he gets better. That being said, he spent 6 rounds literally running from the guy, not trying to do anything but run and survive. He thought if he survived 8 rounds, he could call himself a winner. And I say, that's not what people paid for. That's not what people wanted to watch. If he was really that scared of the guy and he just wanted to run around for 8 rounds, he should have picked somebody more his own size. I would actually like to see, and that's why I put these 2 fights together. I would like to see Andrew Tate versus Jake Paul. They are the same size. They both are coming off of a loss. They're both content creators, so they know how to promote a fight. This would be a phenomenal fight, and I would love to see it. They both don't know how to fight as well.
See, that I would watch. but I would also run around trying to escape Anthony Joshua.
But I will say this, as well as Jake Paul, he had a great attitude after the fight. And so did Anthony Joshua.
You said there were a lot of fake pictures coming up.
There were a lot of fake pictures, and this was one of them. I actually thought,
gross. I'm sorry. I'm not gonna.
He really got his jaw broken. Yeah. People know about that, but there was a lot of AI pictures coming out.
Of course, he got his jaw broken. Look at that. His lip is outside of the ring.
He's not a natural heavyweight, so he shouldn't have been fighting at heavyweight. I think he had a lot of pressure on his shoulders because of the Netflix deal. Mm-hmm. The last fight, he was supposed to fight a smaller opponent. That opponent dropped out at the last minute. So he made a replacement fight a couple months later, and it was with somebody twice his size, I think, because he wanted to get a viewership audience and he wanted to please Netflix. So it wasn't a good decision on his part. Him and Andrew Tate would be a good fight. I would pay to see that or put it on Netflix.
And I think, again, they're levels wise and training and life experience doing this wise, I think that would be a lot more equal at this rate.
And I would say this, Andrew Tate looked extremely horrible, but he used to be a really good fighter, but he's a lot older now. And I don't know if he still has it. Well, obviously he still doesn't have it, but Jake Paul's a lot younger and he doesn't have as much fighting experience, but that experience Andrew Tate has might level out the playing field with Jake Paul's youth. So I think it would be a really good fight. They're around the same weight class as well.
And Rafa, hello Rafa.
Oh, good to see you, Rafa.
Here. Rafa asks, will you stream on Wednesday on Christmas? No, we do have family obligations, but
we have
But we wish everybody a very Merry Christmas.
Actually, I tried to convince her and she said no.
Well, we just can't.
And she tried,
and we do we'll give you all a break as well.
Well, and she tried to get out of the Spanish stream tonight. And I said, no way, you got to do it.
Well, I said people are probably
Rafa's
doing other stuff. Yes, thank you, Rafa, for being here. I will do probably a Spanish stream. There's just, in my opinion, there's not that
You're going to be doing a Spanish stream.
I will.
Okay, let's go into the next story. Oh, now we're going to get into the actual news of the day. So we're going to start off
after 2 hours.
Yeah, we'll start off with the U.S. here. And then we'll go region by region.
Yes. So it seems like there might be a lot more pillows in Minnesota soon, hopefully. From Bo Loden, it says, quote, President Trump just said, Mike Lindell from My Pillow deserves to be governor of Minnesota. Anybody other than Tim Walz deserves to be governor of Minnesota. But I mean, Mike Lindell. He says, I hope he does great. He deserves to do great. A great guy.
This would be phenomenal. Now, Mike Lindell is an ex-crackhead, but he's turned around his life. I will.
I'm going to say that off the top.
Everybody says that
I
about
know,
Lindell, but he's been a real loyalist and an America First kind of guy, and he's put his money where his mouth is.
Yes.
That being said,
Where is pillow?
Tim Walz is the current governor of that state, so this would be a great replacement. I really do like Mike Lindell. He does talk to Democratic content creators as well as Republicans, so he does try to cross the aisle as much as he can. He seems to be honest and upfront with his beliefs and his opinions. That being said, Trump absolutely loves Mike Lindell, and Trump is going to go on a campaign tour for the midterms.
Which I don't think is a good idea.
I think it's a good idea.
He's old.
That being said, Mike Lindell is definitely going to be the one of the stops, and he's going to try to really support Lindell. So I think Lindell actually has a good chance in that state.
But also, especially in Minnesota, with Tim Walz having the gigantic mismanagement issue, also with everything that came out about the fraud regarding Medicaid and other programs going towards a specific community and his mismanagement of it. I think he has a good chance also highlighting all of the actual real mistakes that Tim Walz has had even just recently.
Well, also, he doesn't need a lot of big donors because he does have a company. He can fund the campaign maybe by himself. He has in the past funded other candidates, but he hires a lot of people from the state of Minnesota for his MyPillow company. So he will have the actual working class base. Yeah. And he can, when he says a lot of things, he actually means it. He puts his money where his mouth is. He's employing people from that state. I hope Mike Lindell actually has a chance.
And also, again, if you didn't know, Mike Lindell has a company called MyPillow. If you've ever watched almost any conservative streamer or any one from MAGA, they always promote MyPillow.
You know who's running for governor? Mike Lindell. Do we like Mike Lindell? That man suffered. That man suffered. What he went through because he knew the election was rigged. And he did it. He just did it as a citizen. Mike Lindell, I'll tell you what, every time I introduced him, he got the biggest hand. I hope he does great. He deserves to do great. That man suffered. These people went after him. They went after his company. They did that with me too, but at least I knew what I was getting into. He was just a guy that said, geez, this election was so crooked. It was so rigged. He fought like hell. That guy deserves to be governor of Minnesota. I'll tell you right now.
Okay, and that's good. And what's the leftist content creator Pacman? What's his first name? Pacman?
David Pacman.
Oh, yeah, David Pacman. So Mike Lindell goes on David Pacman's show actually quite frequently, and they have vibrant discussions. So I'm going to be very interested to see how David Pacman actually takes this about Mike Lindell actually running. I hope he does give him a fair shake. If he doesn't, it's going to really expose David Pacman as a partisan hack, sorry.
Yes. And Trump also, I mean, there was a lot of talk during the last, not conference, but like the speech that Trump was going to give the other day, and it ended up all being just about how good he's been doing as a president. But he did come out today and give another speech about different things. But he did mention Maduro, and it is in a lot of people's minds what is going to happen there, especially now with the year ending. Eric Doherty says, quote, President Trump on Maduro says he can do whatever he wants. We have a massive armada formed. And Maduro continues to, well, at least to yesterday, continues to say he's going to fight and not going anywhere.
Your threat seriously. And
he can do whatever he wants.
What's your end
Maduro?
game? What's your end game?
There's no answer. He can do whatever he wants. I mean, we have a massive armada formed, the biggest we've ever had. And by far the biggest we've ever had in South America. He could do whatever he wants. It's all right. Whatever he wants to do. If he wants to do something, if he plays tough, it'll be the last time he's ever able to play tough. But they sent their prisoners into us. They sent people from jails, prisons. They sent people from mental institutions and insane asylums into...
Your threat seriously.
Okay.
He's tired.
Well, and it's very interesting what's kind of happening here. Because I think he either wants to turn Maduro or he wants Maduro to call other elections and kind of put up another candidate. That candidate, but he doesn't want, what's the girl that won the Nobel Peace Prize?
Maria Corina Machado.
I don't think he wants her in there. And I think that's the globalist choice. And I think that's why he's not immediately taking out Maduro. If he can get Maduro to call elections and not necessarily put her on the ballot, but somebody else of Trump's choosing, that would be a different way to get somebody that Trump wants in there.
And we have,
Yeah, it's been very interesting that he hasn't done more, because this is one of the biggest military forces ever deployed by the United States. That
But
actually
I think,
hasn't started into a war.
But I think having that show of force and the will he, won't he pressure always on is the tactic.
Well, and we got the Brazilian elections coming up in 2026. He's got all those ships right off the coast. It puts pressure on Brazil. It puts a ton of pressure on Cuba, because Venezuela can no longer give Cuba the oil.
Now Mexico's giving it to Cuba.
So, and it's also putting pressure on Mexico. And he's really focused on the Western Hemisphere right now, and you're seeing election after election after election go towards the right, or a right libertarian candidate, a hybrid candidate. That being said, I think it's going to continue to go that way, and I don't think he minds actually having that show of military force. It's putting pressure on all the countries that are left leaning in Central and South America.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm going to ignore that. From Rafa says, "What? My hello got censored."
Why don't you continue?
Okay, I'll continue. What? Your hello got censored? I'm sorry. But hello, Rafa. It's weird that they censored that bit. And Rafa says, so Merry Christmas to you. I'll say it again to Guy after he comes back. The guy after he comes back, but says, so Merry Christmas to you both, and may baby Jesus bless you both. You're awesome and are already doing his deeds. And thank you so much. And also blessings to you and your family, future family, and your wife as well. And to everybody else, all your families around the world. I hope that sees us. We will post a Christmas message later on, probably on Christmas. But yes, we will not be here on Wednesday, because we usually film Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. And well, Wednesday is Christmas. So we are taking those 2 days off just because of obligations, well, not obligations. We do it out of love, but we will be doing other things as well. But I will have my Spanish show later on today. Now I have to wait for the guy to come back, or should I just move on to the next story? What should I do? I can run my show like I usually do in Spanish, but I won't. I'm sure the guy wants to say things about this next story, so I will wait for him. Rafa says, I'll have a full house on Christmas Eve. Oh, that's good, and that's nice. And that is something a lot of people don't know, I think, maybe, from the States and Canada, which is something that was kind of a culture shock for me. Again, I am Mexican, raised in Mexico City my whole life until I went to go live in Canada, is that in Canada, they don't really celebrate that much Christmas Eve, or in the US either. I think it's usually Christmas Day that is celebrated. So it was a culture shock to see that there weren't that many things happening, or it wasn't accustomed to actually celebrate on Christmas Eve, which in Mexico and other Latin American countries, it is very... It is when you celebrate on Christmas Eve. That's when you have the big dinner, sometimes, not always, but something similar to like a Thanksgiving kind of dinner with all your family, friends. Then Santa Claus comes, or baby Jesus comes, or somebody comes and gives presents. And then people usually stay up late to open the gifts, or if you're a kid, usually wait till Christmas Day and open all the gifts. But the family kind of always either stays there or comes back on Christmas Day, and then you eat either leftovers or different things. But that was a big culture shock for me to see that in Canada and the US, they don't celebrate on the 24th, or it's not accustomed to celebrate on the 24th, and rather they usually just get together for breakfast, usually in Canada, at least in Vancouver, for the 25th only. The guy is back, so I can stop talking about Christmas.
Better breath.
So Rafa, I'll read Rafa. Rafa's
those your toothbrushes.
Thank you. I'll read Rafa your message. Read you Rafa's message. Rafa says, so Merry Christmas to you both. May baby Jesus bless you both. You're awesome and already doing his deeds. And I said, thank you very much, and Merry Christmas to you and your family as well.
And I met everybody else. When I moved to Mexico, I actually got to meet baby Jesus for the first time, We had the dead bread.
Not the dead bread. It's the rosca de reyes. He gets confused.
Okay, well,
So
we
the
had the
king's
bread.
The
Yeah,
king's
and it has a
bread.
little plastic baby Jesus, and I actually had it in my piece.
Yes, and then
So-
I had to go buy tamales because he couldn't order them. Rafa says, I'll have a full house on Christmas Eve, and that's how it should be. That's always
Yeah.
good. And don't infight people. If you can avoid fighting about either politics or whatever with your family members, having the family is more important than fighting with them, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Rafa also says, are you going out of the city? Kind of, not really though. Rafa says, or you can keep reading my comments because I said, oh, the guy left and I'm sure he wants to talk about this next story. So I don't know what to talk about. So I started talking about Christmas traditions. Rafa says, what are you having for dinner? I believe turkey. I mean, I'm going to help cook it. I don't
Definitely
cook that
cranberry
much.
sauce because I always love cranberry sauce, and it's
Which
a
we
tradition.
probably have to go buy.
Yeah, we'll have to go buy. It's a tradition in the United States, and I grew up
Here
in the States.
too. Well, at least, I mean, within my, when I was growing up, that was always on the table.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's a fully Mexican thing or was something adopted
No,
into Mexico
it was
from the
adopted
States.
because in the States, it's on the shelves all year round because of, people love it. Because people love it.
Okay.
But here in Mexico, it's only on the shelf during the holidays, really.
Yeah. And it used to be really hard to find. Now it's easier to find it.
Yeah.
I know how to make it though, but
Okay,
he doesn't trust me.
Let's continue.
Rafa says, so no Candace dose today. We did talk about briefly
A little
about
bit.
Candace Owens with what Alex Jones said and finally coming out and saying she's insane.
She's starting to get discredited a little bit because she stuck her
little bit.
reputation
Fine.
behind a gentleman that really did the rounds on different podcasts, had been grifting for years. A lot of the other people that are doing the investigation into was there another shooter or something like that have stayed a lot more grounded than Candace. So I think she's starting to lose a little bit of credibility. I'll still watch her and we'll keep it updated, but she's starting to lose credibility and she's causing a lot of division. If you do want to cause division, there's other ways to do it that are more productive, like focus on where do you want the conservative movement to go in the future.
Mm-hmm. And Rafa says, everyone in my family is ultra far right anyways.
Oh,
well, that's
perfect.
good.
You got a great family.
That's fine. Well, yeah, because I guess, I mean, he's from a different state and usually other states other than Mexico City, not all of them, but are more religious and Catholic and grounded, traditional.
I have been seeing right-wing movements in other countries like Australia. There's the Australia First movement and the European First movement in different countries within Europe, like the Italian First movement. It would be nice to see the Mexico First movement kind of emerge.
Mexico primero.
Yeah.
That's what we're going to It's Mexico first, Mexico primero. That sounds great.
Because the conservative movement in Mexico is just absolutely doesn't have a real identity, and the identity that you read where it came from, it just is really dated. And
it's not the same as we've seen everywhere else. And I don't want to say that the conservative movement in Mexico has to progress, because then that's too connected, but it has to evolve in some way, and it has to understand and take the wins that we do see from other countries and the talking points, because again, we're going at a globalist movement that has kind of tried to do not every single thing, but a lot of similar things in a lot of different countries that we continue to see the effects of it. I mean, with the farmers here, we had it in Mexico, now we're seeing it in France and everywhere else, in Brussels. So it is all connected. And if we don't here in Mexico understand that the conservative movement does have to evolve past the barriers and the very traditional way of thinking about it, then it's not going to succeed because it's not going against the actual issue that is a more global issue.
You do have the perfect candidate. Like, you could put a Mexico First movement because you're going to be running against Claudia Sheinbaum, who really...
Morena, not Claudia.
Well, you're going to really be able to campaign against her leading up to that campaign as well.
Yeah, but it's not going to be her that becomes president.
Okay, let's continue.
Well,
I don't
it's
need
not like U.S. politics. In Mexico, there are no re-elections, so a president
I'm
cannot
aware
get
of that,
re-elected.
but it's a globalist candidate you currently have, and they're going to put another globalist in there. Now, Trump has managed to make her look very moderate because she's having to come around to the U.S. for different negotiations, the USMCA and stuff like that. But now would be a perfect time to put a Mexico First conservative candidate up. I know Trump did have dinner with, what's the gentleman's name?
Don Richie, Ricardo Salinas Pliego.
So he may be somebody the U.S. is kind of looking to finance. I know they're going to be looking for a candidate for 2028. They may have to do it through the PAN because the PAN already has enough seats where they can actually run a candidate. So
The pan has never been conservative, and even
I realize that, but they're going to have to put some candidate up, and then that candidate can do what Trump did and reform the conservative party from within.
In other news, somebody that has been trying to stopgap and hasn't really been a positive overall for the Trump administration, in my opinion, from World News, quote, in a bombshell revelation, White House Chief of Staff Susie Wiles disclosed that President Trump will hit the campaign trail with full force for the 2026 midterms, declaring it will be like it's 2024.
Yeah, and if anybody hasn't seen Susie Wiles, this is a good picture and a video interview of her. We talk a lot of crap on her. She is the one that's put a lot of neocons into the administration and tried to block out a lot of the America First candidates like Tulsi Gabbard, like RFK. She's put a lot of roadblocks in their ways so they can't get their agenda done. There's rumors that she's on the chopping block because she's given a very scathing interview of a lot of people within the administration. She's still in there as of right now. She does have a lot of influence over Supreme Court decisions because she's used to be a lobbyist. And the tariff decision coming down from the Supreme Court should be coming down early next year. So maybe they keep her in there until after that tariff decision, because I really think the second half of Trump's administration is going to depend on that Supreme Court decision, whether tariffs are legal or not.
In both for some reason, in both how she acts and how she looks, if anybody has ever seen Harry Potter, tell me if she reminds you of the evil head teacher that took over Dumbledore. What was her name, number one, and number two? Just think of that while you watch her next time and now, because I think that's also mentally what she might be trying to do in a way.
They need to get rid of her before the midterms. Otherwise, a lot of money is going to go to neocons in those midterms.
He's going to have a fun next year, but we're going to put him on the campaign trail too. Typically, just a little bit of campaign speak, if I may.
Yeah.
Typically, in the midterms, it's not about who's sitting at the White House. It's you localize the election, right, and you keep the federal officials out of it. We're actually going to turn that on its head.
Good.
And put him on the ballot, because so many of those low propensity voters are Trump voters.
Yes, they are.
And we saw a week ago Tuesday what happens when he's not on the ballot and not active. So I haven't quite broken it to him yet, but he's going to campaign like it's 2024 again.
Oh.
For all these people that he helps. He doesn't help everybody, but for those he does, he's a difference maker, and he's certainly a turnout machine. So the midterms will be very important to us.
Okay, and that's
He'll
good.
work very.
And I think in my opinion, I know we differ on our opinions. I think having him come out to certain campaign rallies would be huge. Number one, because he does get a lot of people to come out, but at these rallies, they do have a lot of big figures that do bring out the youth and do kind of rally voters. And the problem is, I don't want to see Susie Wiles being the one to arrange that, because she's going to arrange it around neocon candidates rather than America First candidates. We need America First candidates to get in the midterms, because right now Trump has the House, yet they're not voting with him because it's a lot of traditional GOP candidates, neocons, that have their own agenda and put other countries before the United States. If we can get America First candidates in, we can actually make Trump's executive orders turn to real legislative law, which is important for the long term.
And in my opinion, Trump should be focusing more on staying in the White House and continuing to do what he is doing and what he's trying to achieve. But at the same time, he's a bit too old for that, and they're going to get him really tired. So he's gonna be less effective as an actual president. He's not a candidate. He might be able to go help, but to put him on a campaign trail while it's the second year, he actually has to continue to prove and start proving some of the things that he has kind of started but has to continue. I think that's more important than getting him super tired. He's 80 plus. I mean, he's an older man. Well, they get tired quickly, even as perfect as Trump can be. He's going to be tired. He's going to be less useful.
The one thing I would be concerned about is they're going to get a third crack at him. So they've tried to end him twice already. I hope he's smart enough to bring in proper security or do indoor events. That being said, JD Vance is there. So JD Vance.
Use JD.
JD's not good for bringing people for campaign rallies.
But he has to start practicing for 28.
That would be good to teach JD how to do that.
Yeah.
And it's just by that speech JD gave at AmFest, he's getting a lot more kind of, he's understanding how to rally people. It was a very good speech. It's a different side of JD. JD's typically more soft-spoken, a very good debater. This time he's adding that extra element in. Hopefully he gets better by 2028 comes around.
Oh, and Rafa says, Dolores Umbridge, thank you so much. That's the name of the evil headmistress. And again, I think they're similar in more ways than one. And it's funny, if you know Spanish, Dolores means pain and Umbridge means displeasure. So it's pain and displeasure.
Oh, I wanted to talk to Rafa for a minute. He asked the other day about gold and why gold was doing so well. I don't know if you watched the last episode, but we talked about the unit. That's the alternative currency. China's buying up all the gold for that. But there was a battle to control the bullion markets, the metal markets between the United States and China. The United States had silver priced at $60. The Chinese market had it priced at $75. Whoever kind of budged on their price, that would show they actually have control of the metal markets now. This is the first time China's ever challenged. China distinctively won that battle. The last time I checked, it was at $69 today. So it should hit $70 by the end of this week, which will kind of show China now runs the metal markets, which is very important. If they run the metal markets, that means they're going to be able to run the price of technology externally, meaning a lot of global technology prices and precious minerals that go in those types of technology. They can kind of set the price on that. And then internally, they can manufacture those same products for a lot less because they can say it's national security that we charge a lesser price for Chinese companies that are manufacturing technological goods within the state of China. But there's been a war going on between the United States and China, and it looks like China's kind of won control of the metal markets, at least for now. And I don't see anything really changing for that in the near future. Okay.
And Nan says, good evening. Good evening, Nan. Thank you for being here as well. And Merry Christmas to you as well.
Merry Christmas to everybody and a Happy New Year.
Everybody. I said we will post a message on the day as well, probably.
Okay, let's continue on here.
Yes, let's continue on with less, well, kind of cheerful stuff, but still kind of war. From Eric Doherty, quote, holy smokes, the U.S. has struck over 70 ISIS targets in Syria, achieving revenge for their ambush on our troops. If you didn't know, if you harm or threaten any American, especially our servicemen, President Trump will hit you harder than you have ever been hit before.
Yeah, and Israel's been pressuring the United States to engage in more attacks in that region. I think this is something to kind of hold them at bay and not start a broader war. This happened on Friday after the show or early Saturday, But
again, they did ambush U.S. troops.
Yeah, but it was 2 U.S. troops, and this is 70 attacks. This is an overwhelming show of force.
70 strikes inside Syria, ISIS targets. That's significant. Having covered the Pentagon for a long time, that's not minuscule. And this is in response to the killing of those 3 soldiers that you saw the president meet at Dover Air Force Base.
This is a much needed and much welcome message to every enemy of America in the world that if you harm, and the president put in caps in his True Social, if you harm or threaten any American, especially our servicemen, he will hit you harder than you have ever been hit before. And so those people in ISIS, or whether or not they're in ISIS, I'm not sure, who are getting hammered tonight. A-10s mean they're close. They're in close and they're pounding the ground. This is the best thing President Trump could do to protect American troops and civilians abroad. I applaud him completely for doing it.
Here's the Hugh. This is
and there was other news that 3 other countries have aligned against Syria within the European Union. Also, there was something. 2 of the 7 conflicts Israel's currently engaged in is against that enemy. 1 is ISIS and 1 is Syria. So there's 5 other conflicts Israel's also engaged in. So this had a lot to do with Trump appeasing Israel to a certain degree.
And Non says, Merry Christmas, Feliz Navidad, and blessings as well to you and all your family.
Okay.
Families, to all of you. Let's continue with Jay.
And I really wish we had got that turkey sandwich with the cranberry sauce today. We went to a little breakfast diner bakery.
Yeah.
And they had a Christmas menu with this Christmas sandwich that had cranberry sauce and turkey.
Okay. Maybe we can do a review about it. But let's move on to JD Vance. From Crypto Ties, quote, JD Vance said the part most politicians dodge. He said on national TV, if Biden took out $3,000 out of your pocket, of course you're still struggling.
Okay, we can
watch him
yeah, we can just
say it?
play what he said. And JD Vance is getting really good. He's defining himself not only as an American first candidate, but a good compromise candidate. As long as he doesn't have any chinks in his armor, the neocons shouldn't be able to get anybody in there, and he should be the direct candidate for 2028. I think the Israeli wing and the Israeli money will support him, as well as the America First wing. I think he really knows how to walk that appropriate line, even better than Trump did. Trump was a little bit of a shill.
And he does have that backstory that I think is in contrast to Trump's, but also helps him speak from a place where he can say, well, I lived this. This happened to me as well.
Yeah, the big two questions is he's really connected to Palantir, and he used to be a never Trumper and flipped a lot of his beliefs. But he is addressing those issues face forward, meaning anytime somebody asks a question, he gives the answer, which is the right way to deal with it.
That they're experiencing high costs of groceries and other living expenses. How does the administration plan to lower those costs, and how long might that take for them to experience those lower costs?
Well, it's Jackson. As I said earlier, I think the best way to understand this is if the American people had $3,000 taken out of their pocket, it's going to take a little bit of time before they really feel like that money's been put back in their pocket. That just takes a lot of time. It's a lot of work. And I think the best way to do it is, on the one hand, you got to lower costs. That's why that we're lowering regulations on American energy to get gas and groceries down. Now, how does energy connect to groceries? Because if the truck that takes the groceries to the grocery store is paying out the wazoo for diesel fuel, then that means every American's going to be paying more at the grocery. If the farmers who actually grow our food are paying way too much for fuel and fertilizer, that means American citizens are not going to be able to afford their groceries. So if we lower the price of energy, we lower the price of groceries, we lower the price of gasoline, and importantly, we bring good jobs back into this country so that wages go up. That's how you give people a shot at the American dream again. That is our job. That is what we ran on. That is what we promised to do. And after 11 months, again, the average American family is $1,000 richer than they were 11 months ago. Now, if you had $3,000 taken out of your pocket by the Biden administration, of course you're still struggling to get by. Rome was not built in a day, but we are committed every single day to making every single American who works hard to play by the rules, we want them to get a little bit richer every single day. And we do believe that if we keep on making the right decisions, we keep on investing in the United States of America, we are going to find that the American citizens can afford a good life in their country again. That's our obligation, and that's what we're trying to do.
Okay, and they have stopped the bleeding from the Biden administration had the highest rate of inflation. And that being said, that they've completely reversed that. They've put a stopgap in there. They're no longer kind of bleeding out. Prices aren't going higher. That being said, they put all the policies in place they need internationally and on a national level to head in the right direction. By the time the midterms roll around, I think they're going to be in a very good position, and those questions are going to start answering themselves. As far as gas prices go, gas prices are the lowest they've been in decades right now, other than California. California has $8 gas, while the rest of the nation has under $2 gas right now.
And I think reshifting and explaining the priorities, the focuses, and also how one thing affects another, and fully explaining that to people as well is important, because again, there can be a lot of platitudes, they can promise a lot of things, but if the people, and especially with right now Trump's plan and strategy, I think it has to be explained even further. It's going to take time. This is how it's going to work. This is what we've achieved. This is what we're trying to achieve. But if they stay silent or continue to stay silent, then the people will continue to get frustrated, especially before the midterms.
The first part of the strategy was for Wall Street and corporate America, bringing in international money and starting to build those manufacturing, because that's going to take the longest amount of time. A lot of that stuff should come online in the third and fourth year. This second year, and he's starting to transition over this last month, is based on the middle class. He's focusing on the farmers, the drivers, the gas prices, things like that. So now he's focused on his base, and that's the America First blue collar workers. We're going to see that accomplishment come in right around the midterms. So I think they should be sitting pretty, especially if Trump does go on a tour trying to promote America First candidates. Okay.
Nan says, cranberries. My family are cranberry farmers.
Oh, I love cranberries.
With the water and the floating and the picking. I don't really know how it works, but I just know they use a lot of water. Like they flood the fields.
Yeah.
Or they grow,
at least that's what I see on the
water
commercials.
fields. Yeah. Well, I've seen it. Like I've seen like how cranberry sauce is made, and like they flood the fields and they kind of harvest them, and then they have to do everything else. I didn't pay much attention after that. Nan says, I love hearing any populist message. I just don't trust they'll follow through, and that's what I'm saying. And it's the also explaining what's actually happening that I think is important, and which wasn't done during the first administration as much, at least.
Yeah, and I think they're starting to follow through to the populist wing of the party now. That first year, he had to make major moves on an international scale. The U.S. is really getting attacked on an international level from the EU, from the UK, even from Canada. A lot of people don't know how they're manipulating the bond markets, how they're trying to stop U.S. manufacturing and U.S. investment coming in. Trump was able to shut all those attacks down and bring in a lot of investment dollars and start these manufacturing facilities. But that doesn't work so much for the working class or for the blue collar workers. He's really focused on that now. Not only his messaging, but he's really starting to act on a lot of this. So he's sending out checks to soldiers in the value of $1776.
Although he did say they were going to send it to all Americans.
Yeah,
But
it's one step at a time, and those are going to start coming out. So, and as far as gas prices go, they really did focus on that. It was drill, baby, drill, and that is being reflected at the gas pump now more than ever. And I mean, even in Democratic states, other than California, when they're interviewing people on the news, the Democrats aren't liking what the people are saying because...
Well, Non says it's $3.79 a gallon here in Washington State.
Those are Washington, Oregon, and California are the three states that really have crazy Democratic policies on a state level, and that's why they're not able to break through in those three states. California more than any other one. What did they say?
$3.79.
$3.79 is a lot better than over $7.50 in California, which is absolutely crazy. Gavin Newsom is shutting down oil refineries when they need them more than ever. So gas prices in California are through the roof. But other than Oregon, Washington, and California, which are kind of the communist states of the United States.
Social communist, yeah.
Social communist, yeah.
And good luck there in Washington
I used to live in Washington State. So yeah, their policies are just horrible. And it's a shame for Washington State because the eastern half of the state is very Republican, very conservative. It's the western half of the state and Seattle. Specifically kind of have the majority of the population, so they get to vote for everybody. There has been a bit of a movement for the eastern half of Washington and Oregon want to separate.
to move away.
Yeah.
Because they are the producers, the farmers, the people that actually do things and that are more similar to the rest of the middle bit of America. And to the rest of Americans, just in general, also in the South, like there's more camaraderie and similarities, I think, not in general, I'm talking generalities, but between like the ones that actually produce work, do something with their lives than the insane ones in the cities like or in California, for example. And again, Washington is so close to Vancouver, BC that I used to go there quite often before. And Seattle is a scary, scary place, just like Vancouver is in downtown Vancouver. But I'd even say, I'd say Seattle is scarier than Vancouver.
I don't think Vancouver's scary at all. I know you're a woman, so you have a different opinion than I do.
But scary as in like the ideology, scary as in the
ideology
safety issues, the crazy people.
The safety issues are completely different in Vancouver than I'd say Seattle or Washington State. Seattle, you are going to have a lot of gun violence, a lot more physical violence with knives as well.
But in Vancouver now, we're starting to see more and more knife violence as well.
Well, I'll go into the second half, and that's because there is a bit of a social safety net in Vancouver. They do give drugs and direct cash payments to all the people that are living on the street, so they're not as desperate as they are in Seattle. They need to rob to get their drugs and stuff like that.
But it's still not a good idea to do what Vancouver has done, and they've proven it over themselves, tripping over their policies over and over again.
Yeah.
But speaking of health, let's go on to see what RFK has said from Chief Nerd. Quote, RFK Jr. says there are 100,000 monkeys that are in primate labs around the country for research purposes. There's another 20,000 that are imported every year. We're trying to put an end to that completely.
Yeah,
and I agree.
It's amazing. RFK just... You think he's focused on jibby jabs or he's focused on food dyes, but man, he's really hitting every single aspect that HHS has control over. That's Human Health Services. And he has been the shining light, shining brighter than any other star in the Trump administration, even more than Trump himself, I would say at times. And I was really hard on RFK at the beginning of Trump's term because I wanted to push him in the right direction, and he's gone beyond my expectations.
And with animal testing too, and I mean all the fake skin, meat, etc., that they can create now in labs, why on earth are we still torturing animals?
Yeah, and I eat meat. I like to eat meat. I'm not saying don't eat meat. What I am saying is I don't want testing done on monkeys in labs and the kind of life these monkeys live in those labs. Even for cattle farms, I want to see regenerative farming, smaller family farms, have people move from the city and have a different life on these farms, have that be subsidized by the government to a certain point where people can get assistance from the government to buy a farm and stuff like that. I don't like to see when these cattle are just shoved into this little
factory, and any kind of factory farming or even agricultural work, I think is also not beneficial for the health of the people that eat those things. And I do think it is important to get people to go back to understanding where their food comes from, that how killing happens when you have to kill an animal for food, and what the process is like, because in a way, as vegans would say, I'm against veganism, but I think in a way that actually helps you more understand further where your food, what your food is, where it's coming from, and not like kids nowadays that say, oh, where does milk come from? Oh, it comes from the store. That is not the vision that people should have in general, wherever you are. And you should understand where your food comes from and how it's produced, why it's produced, and the process, actual natural human and animal process that has to go into it to get it to you.
Well, yeah, the animals are eventually going to get slaughtered, but they can have a good life up until that point. And also, we showed about the cattle the other day, how they're actually a carbon positive under crazy liberal policies on regenerative farms, because the manure refertilizes the grass, and the grass sucks the carbon out of the air. So it ends that talking point from liberals that we need to kill all these cattle because they're a net negative to the environment. That's just not true.
There are 100,000 monkeys, primates, non-human primates, that are in primate labs around the country for research purposes. There's another 20,000 that are imported every year, and we're very concerned about that. We're trying to put an end to that completely. And the badge of a really humane nation is the way that it takes care of its animals. One of the things that we're doing is that we're re-educating researchers so that they know that there's these other forms of research that are much more predictive of human health outcomes. We're also, in September, we changed the rules at NIH to make it so that researchers can use part of their NIH funding to retire their primates to sanctuaries after the experimentation is done. Until now, there was no option like that, no alternative, except the researcher euthanized that animal after they were through. Now we're developing sanctuaries across the country.
Yeah, and that's great. They're even thinking about the sanctuaries and the long-term health for these animals. If these animals end up giving a large portion of their life to cruel testing, it's nice to know that they're not just going to be ended at the end of their life. They're actually going to have some semblance of life. That being said, they have to be really careful, these sanctuaries they do develop, because these animals are going to have a lot of trauma.
And that's the thing, like weighing because they might be either with irreversible damage or side effects, or heavily traumatized. So there is where you weigh for the animal kind of what's best, but I'm against euthanizing them. I will also say quickly, if you don't remember what Fauci did to the beagles, I mean, at least RFK is actually speaking about what they're trying to do to end all of that. And if you don't Google it, it's too sad for me to talk about. Moving on to a ridiculous, and I, as a Spanish speaker, completely disagree with this. Eric Doherty says, holy smokes, the mayor of Lawrence, Massachusetts can't speak English, so he begged for a translator in court. Anyone seeking public office in America should be required to be fluent in English.
Yeah,
shouldn't be controversial.
This is crazy. I live in Mexico and I don't speak Spanish yet. I don't expect that I should be able to run for office in any way, shape, or form.
No.
The fact that he does not speak English is crazy, and he holds
public office. That's insane.
He holds public office.
So I'm advised by counsel for the respondent that they indeed encourage this and the substitution and have no objection and waive any objection they would have to the your services as a translator here. The division has a concern and has raised an objection based on the fact that counsel, much like me in my capacity as a hearing officer, don't speak Spanish, and therefore we're unable to decide independently whether questions are being translate both directions from the attorney and from the witness accurately. So I appreciate that objection.
She's not even a good translator.
No, and that story actually did shock me when I seen it. And if they're going to continue to head in that direction, and a lot of countries don't even require you to be a citizen now to run for office. We've seen this happen in the UK. The UK is absolutely out of hand, bringing Sharia law in over British law. British law, then bringing Sharia law in and making it British law in certain contexts. I mean, that's where we're going to be headed if you're going to allow people to run for office that aren't citizens and don't even speak the language.
Well, let me say it in a way he will understand, maybe, if he ever does see this. Estás en Estados Unidos, habla inglés. Eres un funcionario público en Estados Unidos, habla inglés. If not, go back to your own country. God.
Okay, let's continue here.
The Tucker says, oh, hold on. Why is it in Spanish? Oh, I'll translate it. The Tucker said, hello, I hope you've had a great Monday. And as always, hello to the chat. Sorry for the chat being in Spanish. I just want to come by and people not to notice me. And what I can say is hold on. Hold on, I'm trying to translate better than that translator. Something about a moving company being acquired, not moving company, transportation company being acquired by someone. I'll read it better into it once you stop
You're
clicking
better than that translator.
Once you stop clicking your fingers at me. That is very rude, both in the States and in Mexico.
Okay,
We don't do that.
Let's continue on. It's very rude that you're delaying the show here for the audience.
Very rude person. From Lips of TikTok. But thank you, the Tucker.
Are you upset he's spaghetti?
Thank you, the Tucker, for being here. Lips of TikTok.
Oh, is that Tucker Carlson? He speaks Spanish?
No.
Oh.
It just says the name is a Tucker. Lips of TikTok says, quote, DHS Secretary Kristi Noem announces bigger incentive for illegals to self-deport. Now offering $3,000 up from $1,000, a limited time Christmas special. If you're here illegally, self-deport now, go back to your family.
This was a phenomenal policy because a lot of immigrants want to see their families at Christmas time or during the holidays. So offering $3,000 if you self-deport plus a free plane ticket. They've already had 2 million people self-deport and take the $1,000 as well as the plane ticket, either back to their home country or a country that will take them, like Canada. That being said, this is just increasing on that policy. Absolutely phenomenal. They've only actually exited 600,000 illegal immigrants by force. The other 2 million have been done because of the self-deportation policy of $1,000.
Could this backfire on them? Like, if a bunch of Mexicans that live in Mexico would go to the States and say, "Oh, I want to self-deport, give me $3,000."
No, because they would have to get into the country first, and the border's now shut.
Okay, so I can't go get $3,000 from the U.S. I can speak English at least. Some of the whole public office doesn't.
Well, you know what? You could probably take a plane up there.
Yeah.
And
take
then
a plane and say, I want to self-deport.
I've been here for 3 years. Yeah. I'm ready to go home.
And they get
a little free vacation.
I could film it.
Well, it's home for the holidays season. So, not only are we returning those kiddos back to their families that Biden lost, we also are saying that if you voluntarily want to go home now to your country, if you're in this United States of America illegally, we will give you $3,000 through the holidays to send you home. We'll buy you a ticket, give you $3,000 to go home, and that includes people that have not been detained, maybe have interacted with us, are detained and don't have criminal charges against them. Yeah, raise your hand. We'll help you get home. We'll facilitate it, and you might get the chance to come back to this country the right way someday. If you wait until we interdict you and detain you and arrest you and have to deport you ourselves, you'll never get the chance to come back. So go on the CBP Home app and get the information, and we'll make sure you get home in time for Christmas.
All right, let's see how many people take that.
Well, it ends on the 31st, so I'd have to hurry up.
Well, that's an important talking point that if you do take the self-deportation and the $3,000 or $1,000 in normal times, the door does remain open if you want to come in on legal means in the future, or if they have to forcefully deport you, you're never coming back in. So overall, this is a good policy. It is working. This is the first year they're going to give that increased incentive bonus of $3,000. They're going to see if there's an uptick. If there is an uptick, they're going to probably have the same policy just before the midterms, so they can kind of tout that. So this is a good time to test it.
Yeah. Non says, I speak pretty good Spanish. My wife is fluent. I'm a native speaker.
My wife is fluent as well.
I'm a native speaker. I'm just waiting on the husband to, start learning.
¿Cómo estás? What does that mean?
How are you? You sound like a little kid. Come on, Dad.
Okay, let's go into Lindsey Graham. And I actually had a few things to say about this.
From Charter of Israel, quote, Lindsey Graham says a Republican nominee for president in 2028 will not be able to win unless they show full and unwavering support for Israel. He goes on to say that Israel is not the problem when it comes to achieving peace.
We'll play the clip and then I'll give my thoughts because I don't think it's as he sees it right now. The playing field has kind of changed and the options have changed for both sides on the Republican side.
I think support for Israel is strong in the Republican Party. I can't imagine a nominee in 2028 being the Republican nominee. If you want to run for president as a Republican in 2028 and you don't show strong support for Israel, I don't think you can win. To our friends on the Democratic side, I hope you'll up your game. I hope you'll realize that Israel's not the problem. The problem for peace is not Israel. Israel signed an agreement with 6 Arab countries. The problem in the region is Iran, Hamas, and Hezbollah. They're the ones that want to destroy Israel. I think support for Israel.
Okay, and I will say this. The fact that he says you have to give unwavering support to Israel if they're on the conservative side, that's no longer the case. That relationship can be renegotiated, especially under J.D. Vance. Why? Because the Democrats have gone so Israel insane, they're not going to vote or they're not going to support Israel no matter what. So on the Republican side, you don't have to toe the line on Israel no more. You can renegotiate the relationship. Renegotiating the relationship kinds of looks like potentially not giving forever ending dollars to Israel to fight wars, pressuring Israel to kind of end a lot of these conflicts and increase economic relations with other Middle Eastern countries like Saudi Arabia, and also maybe redefine what anti-Semitism means. They expanded it to mean if you say anything bad against Israel or Netanyahu or Israel's wars that you're anti-Semitic or that you're Semitic. That being said, the old definition was just fine before they expanded it to Israel and Netanyahu. So.
Yes, I mean, I think, again, just focusing on Israel isn't popular either, but I also think that fully focusing on Israel is not
well, no,
a good idea either.
I think Israel
focus on America.
Israel and Jewish people have a home within the conservative movement. They just can't forcefully have this line of we get to pick your candidate. We want to have all these lobbyists, everything else. The relationship is currently going to be renegotiated, and rightfully so. People like Ben Shapiro should have a voice in the conservative movement. I don't think they should be supporting or putting up their vice presidential candidate if it's a neocon that's going to get us to war on Israel's behalf.
And Ethel says, making Rumble great again for your channel, guys. Thank you. And thank you for being on RUMBLE. We also stream over there. And if YouTube ever censors you, you can go do your comment there and we'll read it out. Maybe censoring it a little bit, just in case, but.
We're getting considerably more viewers on Rumble lately. Not as many as on YouTube, but it would be nice if one day we can make that our primary platform.
I think both. Diversity is always best.
Yeah, but I said primary platform.
Not diversity in that sense. The Tucker says, I also speak English, but some algorithms are especially good in English, and I am now learning simplified Chinese. Well, good luck to you.
Oh, wow.
Ni hao. That's all I know. I worked at two high schools in Vancouver, and there were a lot of Chinese students.
Okay, let's go into the last.
Hold on, because this has to do with it, and then we're going to continue talking about him. So Non says, LOL, Israel is crashing out. Lindsey Graham is the devil. On that, I will agree.
Yeah, and
Non also says, Semitic is literally just a group of languages. The whole concept of anti-Semitism is invented. They should really call it something else.
Yeah, I would agree with that until the Anti-Defamation League took control of that word and expanded it to mean hatred towards or disagreeing with Israel's endless wars and Netanyahu. I disagree with Israel as a nation starting all these wars and Netanyahu. I don't necessarily disagree with a lot of Jewish people on a lot of other things.
And Ethel says, Nat is almost promoting Rumble diversity and Rumble DEI now. I meant platform diversification, not diversity. Sorry.
And I'm going to say this, that just the relationship between Israel and the Conservative Party is in flux right now. Ultimately, I think they will work it out, but it's not going to be this line where we have to toe the line like Trump has done in his administration. I think we can back off of that line a little bit and maybe not forever fund them, or at least lower the funding or give it through a third party.
But for all countries.
Yeah.
But also Lindsey Graham, which I think almost nobody likes. So Ian Jaeger says, quote, Senator Lindsey Graham says that the United States needs to give Ukraine Tomahawk missiles and needs to go all in if Russia rejects this new peace deal.
And this is a neocon for you. Let's get into endless wars with Israel. Let's get into endless wars with Ukraine. Let's go after Venezuela at the same time. Let's spread ourselves so thin we're going to have to send American soldiers on the ground.
If Putin says no, we need to dramatically change the game, including giving Tomahawk missiles to Ukraine to hit the drone and missile factories that exist in Russia. I would go all in if Putin says no. If Putin says no, we need to.
I say no to you, Lindsey Graham. Yes. And this is what
they'll be leaving.
This is what a neocon is by nature. I mean, this is why the midterms are so important. Put America first candidates in that aren't going to start these forever wars, that want to see economic success within the economy, not on the battlefield.
And now let's jump into the S show that is Canada.
Yeah, we're going to go into the region of Canada now.
The region. The mess that is Canada. From Mark Nixon, and again, I am designing things so they come up and it says what we're talking about now.
Quit saying it until you do it, because I don't think you're going to do it at
I
any
am
point.
going to do it.
You keep saying it, but you're not even working on it.
I'm working right now. From Mark Nixon, quote, Pierre Poilievre, if you vote for me, the Northern Gateway Pipeline is approved and construction starts yesterday.
Okay, this was an absolutely despicable interview. If you thought that the interview they did with Trump was despicable with the BBC, where they spliced it up, we just did a video on that, by the way. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend it. This interview, every time they would ask him a question, he would give part of the answer and they would cut him off halfway through. You can see the flash of light every time they put a cut in there. They constantly cut him off when he was giving a good answer. They didn't want him to fully answer. Only 15 minutes of the interview was aired. It was supposedly a 45-minute interview. They need to start signing contracts in Canada if they're going to give these mainstream outlets interviews. And that is that you're going to have to post the whole thing on your website, even if you only want to air some of it on actual television.
And let's remember that almost all mainstream media, if not all of it, is state-sponsored media because they receive gigantic subsidies from the government and from who are in power in the government still, the Liberals.
What about the duty to consult with Indigenous leaders?
We should do that.
Oh, pause it. This hag used to come into my bar all the time. I used to be a bouncer, and the CTV studio was right on the corner, so she used to come in after. This girl needs to be fired. She is completely biased here when she interviews liberals. She doesn't give any tough questions. And she asks the same question 4 or 5 times because they want to get the cut where he gives the most degrading answer to his conservative cause.
You would do that?
Of course.
And what if after those consultations, the answer is still no?
Well, the answer is given by the Prime Minister. And I'm running...
I'm saying if the Indigenous leaders say no.
Then I will thank them for their input. And at the end of the day, the Prime Minister has to decide. And my decision, and I'm telling Canadians before the election so they can vote on it, is I will approve a pipeline. Nobody has a veto.
What about the duty to consult with
And he's saying that so everybody knows going into this election, yeah, some people's feelings are going to be hurt, but these are our policies and this is how I'm going to fix Canada.
And Carney, with Poilievre, I have been kind of hot and cold throughout his whole, ever since he came up after Erin O'Toole as the Conservative Party leader, because he's good on some issues, then he kind of forgets about it, then he gets like really bland, and then he actually goes hard and actually does the talking points that are important.
Yeah, I'm done doing that anymore.
But he's back and forth and back and forth.
It's time to get behind JD Vance. It's time to get behind Trump. The midterms are coming up, and you're not going to get a better candidate than Poilievre. I understand he's not perfect. It's the candidate we need to get behind, and we need to start pushing for him, not trying to push him in the direction that we want him to go. He's where he's going to be as a conservative in Canada. He's the best you're going to get if you want to fix Canada. Vote for him. Otherwise, his review's up in January, and if he doesn't get that review, you're going to get another Erin O'Toole, and Canada will never be fixed. Okay, let's go into...
Also, Mark Carney, from Mark Nixon. No, it was Mark Carney. Carney backs the $100 million plan. Mark Carney just elevated Mark Weissman, chair of the Century Initiative, the group pushing 100 million people in Canada by 2100, I guess, to Ambassador. Pierre Poilievre warned us in April, Canada is about to get flooded.
Earlier this week, Mark Carney added Mark Weissman to his list of advisors on Canada-U.S. relations.
Mark Wiseman was the co-founder of the Century Initiative, a lobby group that wants to bring Canada's population to 100 million people by 2100. Can I get your reaction to that? And what do you think, how do you feel about the idea of rapidly expanding Canada's population to reach 100 million by the end of the century?
Well, it shows that the Liberals would be no different in a fourth term than they were in the first three. The Liberals destroyed our immigration system in their first three terms in power. They followed a radical global...
And that being said, if you can't start it, that's fine. There's been documents released, and Mark Carney was on board with a lot of these documents. These were global. These were global ideas that were coming in from the WEF and a lot of other globalist organizations being inputted into Canada, even more so than into Europe. They wanted to increase the population of Canada from 30 million. They're currently at 40 million. They want to get to 100 million. They don't have the infrastructure there. It'd be one thing if they were properly growing the infrastructure and actually integrating these immigrants. If you're going to bring 100 million immigrants in or increase the population to 100 million from 30 million, there's no way to properly integrate that. Your country's culture is now gone, and whoever you're immigrating in, that culture is now going to be the dominant culture within that society.
And that's already almost happened in Canada anyways. Like they've erased any cultural identity they did have and made it prohibited and continue to push everybody else's on everybody else, and you can't say anything about it.
Yeah, I would have liked to see Poilievre take a harder stance, but he would have had to do that in the last election. They've continued to flood Canada with so many immigrants. If he comes out extremely hard on immigration going into the campaign, it may make it hard for him in the campaign. So maybe that's why he's moderating his views. But overall, he's the best you're going to get in Canada. So
and that's saying something.
If there is an election called in the spring, which there's rumors, but there's also rumors that the Liberals are going to steal another Conservative Party member, maybe Doug Ford, and then an election will never be called, at least for another 4 years. So if that election does get called, Pierre Poilievre is the best you're going to do.
And Ethel says Pierre Poilievre is too weak. He's got no business, accomplished nothing, and Canada is doomed in the next decade. Either way, I do kind of agree more with Ethel here.
Yeah, but...
And Ethel also says Pierre Poilievre is dissimilar from the Liberals. He's just slightly better. It does not cut it. He's just a Liberal dressed as a Conservative. But right now, I mean...
No, I would
also do agree.
I would disagree with that somewhat, meaning I think when she describes Pierre Poilievre, she probably lives in Canada, I'm guessing. She can remember Erin O'Toole. I think Erin O'Toole fits that to a T, what she just said. I think Poilievre is at least a little bit further right. And you're going to need to slowly move the Conservatives candidates further and further right. Canada just won't vote for somebody more far right than Pierre Poilievre. We've seen Maxime Bernier, who I absolutely love, and is far enough right for me, but he's not palatable to the Canadian people, especially when the majority of the voting bloc are immigrants.
And it's going to have to be like a slow effort. And I do agree with Ethel. It has a longer name. Don't know if you're a girl or boy. You don't have to let us know. But I think it's going to be like it's a decade lost, especially if they continue to go down this path and continue to vote for Liberals. It's every time. It's more and more time added on to how long it's going to take if they actually want to rescue Canada.
I'll also put this in Ethel's mind, maybe. Pierre Poilievre is running as a Conservative as far as right is going to be palatable to the majority of voters. If he can get in, Donald Trump is currently in office, and if JD gets in office after him, they're going to be able to run cover so he can push much more far-right policies than what he's going to run on. We even see here in Mexico, we have an extremely liberal president, and she's being pushed rightward. She's now in the center, at least on a lot of issues, because Trump is pushing her there. Trump will push Poilievre as well, and that will be enough cover for Poilievre to actually go further right than what he's promising in these elections. So if you can get Poilievre in office now where Trump's still in office, it's going to give him cover. But if a Democrat gets in office in the United States and then Poilievre gets in, it's going to be very hard for him to govern. Now's the time to kind of get him in and hope for the best.
And Ethel says, I'm so offended that my gender pronouns are being assumed. I'm going to complain to the higher DEI authority. Joking. That's what they put. Now I'm just going to use they, them pronouns for it. No, I'm kidding. If you want a certain pronoun, let us know, I guess. And Non says, Lindsay, fight to the last Ukrainian gram. Fight to the last anything. Fight until he gets his whatever he deserves from the wars that he's
Well,
trying to
imagine what Ukraine's going to look like at the end of this. All the women have freaking left. There's a few left. All the men have been sent to the front lines. The ones that could flee did. The ones that are on the front lines are about to die. Then the EU is going to take control and absolutely flood them with immigrants to rebuild the country, and then probably order the Ukrainian women back there. And then you're going to have the globalist wet dream.
But let's see another globalist wet dream, which is Mark Carney. From Mark Nixon, quote, "This is insane. Mark Carney just claimed Donald Trump respects him. That's insane by itself."
Well, you said it. That's the thing.
For deepening relations and trade with China. Second insane thing. This might be the most insane thing Carney has ever said. Just the fact that he said Donald Trump respects him, that's insane all by itself.
And
then China on top of it.
This is a very liberal reporter, but I do have to say in this interview, she did really kind of grill Carney. And you can see that by her facial expressions. She just wasn't having it. Play the clip.
You seem to get along well with the president. I wonder whether you think that matters, whether that personal relationship that you've developed is helping at all.
I'll refer back to we have the best deal. That's a starting point. I think, look, my view is that the U.S. respects strength. The president respects strength. He respects people.
He sees that in you?
Well, it's for him to answer. He wants to be a great man like me. That's what he said in public. It's kind of it's a good line. I enjoyed it at least. And you know, so being direct with him and what our objectives are and how we see it, that's important. But also he respects that the UAE wants to invest $70 billion or intends to invest $70 billion in Canada. He respects that we have launched trade negotiations with India, that we're have a rapprochement with China, that we are deepening our defense partnership with Europe, that we are increasing our defense spending, bringing it towards that 5%. Yes, he does respect those steps that we've taken. All of those steps are in Canada's interest. All of those steps are in Canada's interest, but yes, they respect that.
No, he doesn't respect that. No. And the fact that they don't have a new trade deal and the United States is probably going to pull out of that, line up much more with Mexico than Canada. It's going to show how much he respects Canada. He doesn't. That's why they need a conservative government in Canada, somebody that can actually negotiate on an ideological level with Donald Trump. Donald Trump has stated that he's now focused on the Western Hemisphere and he only wants to deal with countries that are ideologically aligned. He wants to strengthen countries that are ideologically aligned because they have the same long-term vision. Canada does not have that. They want to align with China and Europe because they're enemies of the United States, at least under this liberal government. I'm sorry to say if you live in Canada, but I hope you vote this clown out.
Yes. You said it all. And Nan says, so sad regarding Ukraine. Exactly. That's what they keep pushing, and that's what's going to end up happening.
Well, and there's a lot of these EU countries are starting to wake up to this, and especially the eastern the eastern countries in Europe. They understand Ukraine's future could be their future if they let the EU dictate their path. There's talks that some of these countries may separate. Hungary, Poland, Austria, Italy. These are the names that are coming up. I hope it does happen at this point because the EU is going in the wrong direction.
And also, all the deals that Mark Carney spoke about were from when he was following Donald Trump around like a lost puppy dog that's hungry and trying to get the exact same or similar things to be able to say, "Oh, I did it too."
You're mistaken.
What?
What deal?
Well, all the negotiations he spoke about.
He said they want to invest $70 billion.
But the talks that he's trying to do were during that time.
Everything he got was, they want to, they intend to. He didn't get anything on paper. He's got absolutely nothing, and Trump's going to make sure that $70 billion that was supposed to go to Canada from the UAE is going to go to the United States.
Where they're actually producing technology and things.
Where they're they've already committed to $1 trillion to the United States.
But at least the CBC has realized something that they were something they should have realized a long time ago. From CBC Watcher, quote, "CBC suddenly realizes that Venezuelan oil is a lot like Canada's and that American refineries are specifically built and modernized to refine Canadian heavy oil and can easily pivot to oil from Venezuela.
Well, and I talked about this the other day. This came up. I can't remember if Rafa asked it or somebody asked it. And I said, no, America likes Venezuelan oil because all the oil refineries in the United States take decades to actually build. They're very old. They only refine very thick, dirty oil. So they prefer to have the clean oil and clean natural gas that they actually drill out of the ground. They prefer to ship that over to the EU and take in dirty oil that's cheaper and refine it in their old oil refineries.
As the U.S. continues to target alleged drug boats from Venezuela, talk of regime change in the oil-rich country is ramping up. A shift that could have an impact on Canada's energy sector. Our Aaron Collins now on why regime change in Venezuela could bolster the case for another pipeline to the Pacific.
Off the coast of Venezuela, a show of force on the high seas. The U.S. seizing a Venezuelan oil tanker.
A large tanker, very large. Largest one ever seized, actually.
That after the U.S. destroyed more than 20 boats it alleges were being used by Venezuelan drug runners.
Right now, the world is seeing the strength of American resolve in stemming the flow of lethal drugs to our country.
And as the U.S. military presence in the area grows, talk of regime change is building too. But as pressure mounts on Venezuela's president, some question U.S. motivations.
Of course, oil and the prices of oil is something that moves Trump administration towards Venezuela.
Venezuela has the largest oil reserves on the planet, but years of mismanagement and underinvestment have seen exports crater, dropping from a high of more than 3 million barrels a day to about a quarter of that.
The country has massive reserves, largest in the world, but they are unable to exploit them. And that is obviously a major vulnerability, but it's also one of the reasons why the United States is interested in Venezuela.
Venezuela's oil is similar to that produced in Canada's oil sands. A resurgence in oil exports from Venezuela, a potential challenge for Alberta's oil patch.
It would be a direct competitor for Canadian barrels into the U.S. Gulf Coast market.
But even with regime change, rebuilding Venezuela's energy sector would take.
Okay, and that's pretty good.
Would take a long time. I just finished the sentence there for the announced for the CBC.
Okay, and let's go into the last Canadian story before we move over to Australia, then Europe, and then China.
We're gonna have to hurry up.
Yeah, we got plenty of time.
Well, you said you want me to do my Spanish show, so I need time
we'll go to
prep.
8:30. We'll go to 8:30.
Okay. From Mark Nixon, quote, hundreds of Canadians are showing up and demanding Michael Maher resign. This doesn't stop here. Pressure works. Silence protects betrayal. Hold on. Keep showing up, keep sharing, keep applying pressure.
You can just play it.
And do you want to explain who Michael Maher is?
Yeah, we'll explain it after. You just play the clip. Okay, and that's good. This is one of two conservative candidates that have now crossed the aisle, gone over to the Liberal Party. If the Liberal Party gets one more, they have a majority government. You're not going to be able to call an election, and they're going to be able to rule by dictate. This is not typically how democracy is done. There's backroom deals being made here to lure these candidates over. I'm sure the next conservative candidate to come over, possibly Doug Ford, is going to get a big backroom deal, and they're willing to offer any amount of money because it's cheaper to offer one conservative a bunch of money than actually run a whole nother election, especially when they're dropping in the polls. What needs to happen here is these protests need to continue. Every day they're at this guy's office. They need to continue. They need to have petitions, not just at his office, but other candidates have left. This will send a message to other candidates not to come over to the Liberals. Otherwise, Canada is done as a nation for the next 4 years.
And speaking of, Ethel asks, I've heard that the Trump admin mentioned that they are reconfiguring the road Kuzma, but I'm going to say the USMCA just to piss off Canada. By summer 2026, should Canada be pushed completely sideways by Trump?
Yeah, so we talk a lot about this on the show. What looks like it's going to happen, especially because I know so much about the Trump administration. He wants to pull out of the deal and then re-engage with two separate deals, one for Mexico, one for Canada. If Canada gets one at all, he is on good relations with Mexico. Mexico is doing everything he kind of wants, so I would expect a fairly good deal there. That being said, I really did look into that deal, and that deal actually goes to 2036. So I wasn't sure how they were going to get out of it. But there's small print within that contract that says they have to give 6 months notice at any time, and any party can pull out of the agreement. So as of right now, if Trump gave notice today, in 6 months, they could be out of the deal and then renegotiate the deal. That being said, the deal's actually up for review in January, February, March, April, May, in June. So most likely they're going to review it in June. There's rumors Trump's going to pull out in June. 6 months after that, they would actually be out of the deal. And then a real hurting would come on to Canada. I also think that's why you're seeing the United States really trying to get rare earth minerals and a lot of mineral rights in other countries right now. They're trying to go after Venezuela oil. A lot of the products Canada would normally trade with the U.S. within that free trade agreement, Trump is trying to find other suppliers of that so he could really put a lot of pressure on Canada to renegotiate that deal in better terms for the U.S.
Ethel also says, speaking of Michael Ma, that's yet another example of poor and weakest Pierre Poilievre leadership. And I agree. It's Pierre Poilievre who made Ma take the writing, no true vetting, nothing. Hence the result. That's Pierre Poilievre at his finest. And again, I do agree. And if you don't know the Canadian parliamentary system, it would take me a while to try to explain it. But writings, etc. It is hard to vet all the people that are candidates, but it is something, especially that the Conservative Party should be doing to avoid things like this. And again, if Pierre Poilievre is a leader of the Conservative Party, he should have it all under his reign, which he didn't even for his own. Right?
Yeah, I would say that I like a much further right candidate than Pierre Poilievre. That being said, we can see with, what from the PPC?
Maxime Bernier.
Yeah, we can see Maxime Bernier just wasn't palatable to Canada. He has almost no political power. The party's barely surviving, which is a shame because I really do like that party. Viva Frei was involved in that party as well. I really do like him. We did see another party come up called the BC One Party. They were actually grabbing a large voter bloc within BC. That being said, it looks like that party is currently dissolving now, and even if they didn't dissolve, that would just take votes away from the Conservatives. You just need to get, I guess, Poilievre in there, and hopefully his true colors can come out and Trump can push him further right. At least that's what we're going to hope.
But there was infighting between Trump and Poilievre a while ago. So
before, but
Non says the U.S. is an oil company with an army.
I don't disagree.
What most countries want to be.
I don't disagree with that, but I hope also this America First, as it's redefined under J.D. Vance, stops fighting these forever wars, especially in foreign countries in the Middle East for oil and mining rights in Afghanistan. And they have enough oil to actually, they have more oil than most nations on earth. They can supply all their needs from their own oil. That being said, they manipulate oil prices and a lot of other things through the military. But the America First movement is supposed to end these forever wars and bring a lot of that military home and focus on the U.S. and the Western Hemisphere.
And Ethel says, Nat, it's Pierre Poilievre's primary job, to be honest. Yes. They have under 180 people who realistically can win and under 20 questionable writings. You can absolutely vet every single person there. But is the effort and is the willingness to do so there? No, it's not.
Yeah, they need I would like to see them start more like within the Conservative Party within the United States. You have moderates, you have neocons, but then you have the America First wing. I would like to see other wings of the Conservative Party kind of emerge within the conservative umbrella. Unfortunately, that doesn't happen. And you have this BC One Party kind of pop up, then disappear. And then you have the PPC also pop up. It would be nice if they had more of a radical wing or more of a far right wing of the party. The Conservative Party just doesn't find that palatable. And I think that ultimately, if they don't win in the next election, that's going to be their downfall. They didn't create a big enough tent.
And Sean says, we just need to take over the Northern Territories as Canada has no ability or interest in defending North America's north. From the U.S., I'm guessing, so probably.
Well,
take over Alberta, that'd be the first step.
I will say this, the NDP do kind of run BC and they're running it into the ground. Maybe
more so.
It would have been nice to see the BC One Party kind of take over BC and run it the proper way. And then maybe state or province by province, they could expand their party. That might be the way to go, but that's going to take far too long. You need immediate change in Canada. Otherwise, they're falling off a cliff. Maybe Pierre Poilievre can stop that with Trump's help if he gets in office.
And Ethel says, similar to Sean, I think Canada can only be saved if it becomes a 51st state with no presidential voting rights like Puerto Rico. Unlikely, though. Well, you and Sean confirm an alliance, an Americo-Canadian alliance.
I happen to agree, and I'm very, I'm very big on
Yeah.
the Saskatchewan or Alberta separatist movement. I would love to see them separate. I don't think they're saving Canada at this point. I don't trust in the voters of Canada. They're far too socialist. That's why we moved from Canada to Mexico, not because I didn't think the politics could change. I thought maybe it could, but I don't trust in the Canadian people. They're too socialist. They've been propagandized too much. They won't vote in their own interest.
And Ethel says BC1 is a major crisis now. They are collapsing. Exactly.
Yeah.
Their own mismanagement.
And their leader,
their own downfall.
their leader was very good. She managed to fend off the young individual that was trying to take her spot, but it looks like the party's in complete collapse, which I guess is good for the Conservative Party. But there was some real hope there. The leader of that party is very good. The Conservative Party, if BC1 collapses, should look at her as a potential future leader for the Conservative Party.
And Sean says, a Cascadia country? 51st state. Just get together and talk about it, you and Ethel. Nan says, the blockades, the IMF, and the banker games, they make it impossible for Venezuela to succeed, and say, look at what a failure it's turned into. But it was also Maduro. I mean, I do place the blame at Maduro's feet and what happened in the country and has happened even in a more accelerationist way in recent years.
Yeah, and I will say this, all Central South America and Mexico was extremely far left, extremely socialist for the last decade or 2 decades. That being said, there is a right-wing movement currently taking country by country by country, and Donald Trump is investing money in these elections and putting a lot of social media effort into these elections to try to sway these elections to the right. We've seen it in Argentina. We've seen it in El Salvador. We see it in Honduras now. We see a right-wing candidate coming up in Brazil, which would be the crown jewel of South America. And there's a few other countries within that mix. Mexico is coming up in 2030. That would be nice to see that go right-wing. But if it can happen in Central and South America, which was extremely far left, even further than Canada in a lot of these countries, maybe there's a chance for Canada. That being said, there's going to be a deadline. They need to change soon. Economically, they're going to fall off a cliff. And they're going to become a third world country if they don't get it together.
And with the imports, everybody that they're importing in and the goals that they have as well. I mean, it's stopped being Canada a while ago, and now it'll continue.
They're outright stating they want to import 60 million people. That would make a population of 100 million. That's absolutely insane. Okay, let's go into Europe now.
Okay. No, Europe or Australia?
Oh, sorry, Australia.
Okay, from AUS Integrity, quote, new laws banning public assembly have been laid out by Premier Chris Minns. How does this Premier justify extraordinary new powers to address a problem that is not even manifested? Is this multiculturalism so delicate it can't stand?
Yeah, so we've seen since Bondi Beach, they're starting to take people's weapons. They're doing massive gun restrictions. They're going in massive internet censorship. They had just implemented the digital ID. This Bondi Beach thing is the huge excuse that they needed to actually implement a lot of the things on top of the digital ID.
Well, they needed a crisis.
Yeah, let's play it.
Today I'm standing with the Attorney General and the Police Minister to nominate a series of reforms that we'll introduce to the New South Wales Parliament on Monday in a few days' time. Firstly, the government will act to ensure that we restrict the authorisation of public assemblies during high-risk times like when there is a terrorist event in New South Wales. When a terrorist incident is formally declared under the Terrorism Police Powers Act, the Police Commissioner or Deputy Commissioner of Police...
They're going to restrict protest in high-pressure times. Now, he's saying when there's terrorist attacks, but that's not how the bill reads. They can expand it up. They can expand it in a much broader context. That's just the excuse they're using.
With the agreement of the Minister for Police, we'll be able to declare a specific area where the public assemblies are restricted for a period of time, a public assembly restriction declaration. That might be any part of the state or all over the state. No public assemblies in the designated area will be able to be authorised, including by a court. Police will have access to existing powers to move people on where their behaviour presents or causes harassment or intimidation or obstructs traffic. We hope this will be a strong signal to the community that assemblies in public spaces in a designated area are unsafe or discouraged during a period of mourning or division or terrorism. And these measures, we believe, are targeted. Now, just to give you the specifics of it, a declaration must be called within 14 days of a terrorism designation being reached under the Police Powers Act. It will then be in order for 14 days, but can be extended for a further 14 days up to a period of 3 months. And this is obviously extraordinary powers not seen before
Okay, that's
in
good.
any jurisdiction.
And that being said, when they start restricting protests, we've seen this already happen in Canada. They'll extend them broader and broader and broader. If you give them an inch and you let them set that first precedent, they then take a mile. There used to be no taxes, even in the United States. Now the entire tax system is extremely broad, and it was brought under the context of war. In this context, they're banning protest under the guise of terrorism. In Canada, you're not allowed to protest in front of private. And you're not able to protest in front of libraries during cross-dressing story hour because they consider that to be hate speech. So they ban protests in designated areas, and they've broadened it out very extremely in a lot of provinces there.
And again, who can these powers be used against as well? Because in Canada, they were very, and in the US as well, even though they didn't have the same mechanism to try to do it, but let's remember Black Lives Matter. Let's remember who was allowed to protest and who wasn't, and under what. In Canada, again, they started saying that only people with that could prove that they were First Nations peoples or Indigenous peoples could go out to protest during the bad times of 2020.
Go to the last.
So they can like go and select who's allowed to protest and who isn't. And we know as to how Australia has managed the people that have come into the country, who they'll probably continue to let protesting eventually.
Go to the last article in the Australian section. It has a lot to do with this. So this was a man that was protesting the Prime Minister of Australia. And this is how they're treating protesters over there now. And this is pretty scary when you consider the fact they're going to start banning certain kinds of protest, and they've already brought in a digital ID, and now they're bringing massive online censorship bills in.
From Avi Yamini, I know some of you might not like him, but he has the story. They arrested the man who yelled at the Prime Minister.
Why don't they like Avi?
Because he's very Zionist, pro-Israel, pro-Jewish. He's Jewish. From Australia.
But I like him.
You have blood on your hands in Bondi last night. What the F?
Blood on your hands! Blood on your hands! Fucking blood on your hands! Blood on your hands!
Okay,
Why
that's
are they
good.
covering his face?
Yeah, and you can't, he's simply telling the Prime Minister he has blood on his hands. I mean, when Trudeau was in office, people followed him around the country protesting him. And it's because a lot of the censorship bills they're trying to bring into Canada have been blocked. As much as I don't like the direction they're going, a lot of them have been knocked down. In Australia, they've all been let in at this point.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Do you want me to go to the other Australia stories? Or
No, let's go over to the European Union just because we're running out of time otherwise.
Told you. Hold on. Okay, let me just read the last bit.
Okay, I'm going to use the bathroom when you do that.
No, just say I'll be right back. You don't have to, nobody wants to know that.
I'll be right back.
From Non says, remember Juan Guaido? Guaido is the real president of Venezuela, don't you know? Briefly, yes. Sean says, I lost a friend who last I heard was under home arrest under the Chavez regime years ago. I doubt it turned out well for him and his family. Breaks my heart. Venezuela is a mess. And again, if this isn't stopped, and as we're seeing that people are actually fed up in the rest of Latin America and actually voting in more, again, right-wing, conservative, etc., better ideals candidates, and they're actually winning. So that means there is a change coming, hopefully. But with Venezuela, I mean, I think it's too much of a mess. Sean says, what does any of these measures in Australia address what happened in the Bondi terrorist attack? This will actually make Australian Jews less safe, in my guess. Again, who are they going to choose to stop from protesting?
This is the big issue. And even with the Trump administration has been absolutely fantastic on free speech, not only protecting it, bringing in the Granite Act, shutting down places like the European Union, like the UK, Australia, and Canada that are filing frivolous lawsuits against private social media companies in the United States, trying to get them to adopt foreign law. Trump's knocked all that down. The one freedom of speech issue Trump has had is they've broadened out the definition of anti-Semitism to include criticisms of Israel and Netanyahu, and then they've actually started instituting laws on this. They're now doing the same thing in Australia, and it's only going to cause more anti-Semitism to actually happen.
And Nan says, in the US, they designate official protest zones. Yes, but this would be different because it is, you can't, and for this specific issue during these specific days, and then who are they going to allow and who are they going to stop? Because I'm sure they'll allow some of them to go on, like they did in, because again, this is all coming from what happened in Canada a while ago, and while they try not to be, Commonwealth countries are very similar amongst themselves, especially with the authoritarian measures that they try to implement and the special powers that they give themselves after different events.
Yeah.
Here, it's sounding very similar to Canada.
It's getting to a point, people don't give a shit anymore. The issues are becoming far too real. The amount of immigration there that's happening, especially in the EU with grape gangs, and the serious situations that are happening. Farmers getting their entire flock culled of cattle, taking farmland away from farmers. Same thing is happening in Australia. We've seen the protests that happened in Brussels when they tried to bring the funding for the next 2 years in Ukraine. The farmers absolutely took over the city center. They tried to breach the building. They started lighting parts of the city on fire. This is going to start happening in Australia. It's not going to matter where you can and can't have protests when they're just disconnecting from their civilian population to such a degree that's having real world impacts that just aren't acceptable to the population anymore. You're going to see these protests that happen in Brussels start happening all over the world.
But in the UK, apparently they do want to connect certain people with certain other people. And let me just say they're doing the meme, essentially. From Yossi Benyakar, the UK says, quote, about 8 million people live alone. Many could welcome a refugee into their home. We've seen people do this meme on the streets, asking people if they would. Now, apparently the government is thinking they might want to do that as well. Now, government think tanks and the radical left are openly pushing for asylum seekers to be housed inside private homes. This was always the next step from borders to streets to your front door. And now many of those that said, yes, I'll take a refugee when they were asked in the streets about it as mostly a meme or to prove a point, now they might actually have to.
Well, there was an uptick a year ago of gay people taking refugees into their homes. Now, I don't want adult male refugees. Now, I don't want to make any suspicion what was going on there. That kind of stopped.
Well, it's better adopting them than children.
That stopped when one of the refugees beheaded the two gentlemen that took him in. This was a real case that happened in the UK. And that was a case that got national recognition. And now he's suggesting to bring immigrants back into people's home after a beheading. And these grape gangs that are going on there as well. You have to realize in the EU, they already have the most immigration because they already immigrate from other European countries where it's good immigration. What's happening now is bad immigration where people don't assimilate to the culture.
And I think we need some creative solutions for that. My family, we live in a community. There's 11 of us that live under one roof, 6 different families, no biological connection between many of us. And yet I think it's 8 million people in the UK live on their own. And with a program like the Homes for Ukraine program, many people were able to welcome a refugee into their home. And there are so many benefits to both us as hosts. It's actually bad for our mental health. We have worse health outcomes if we live on our own. So maybe we need to get creative and start being hospitable. That I know the great population.
And the government was trying to promote.
Yes, don't live alone, get married, have children, but.
The government tried to promote this idea. We reviewed it on the show before. They brought in a tax. If you have an extra bedroom, say you have a married couple that has a 3-bedroom, 2 of those bedrooms will be taxed because nobody's living in them.
Well, now they can put an illegal migrant in there.
That's why they're trying to pressure people to take migrants in order to avoid extra taxes on their empty rooms.
Sean says, I used to live in the Netherlands. Those farmers are for real, very old school mentality and conservative. They actually wear wooden shoes still.
Yeah, and they're not just old, they're just not old school and conservative. They're actually cutting edge when it comes to technology and when it comes to carbon emissions and things of this nature because they had been complying. Yet they're still getting rid of these farmers, taking their farmland, and they're letting foreign farmers that don't know how to farm nearly as good or get much smaller yields to some of the most high-tech farmers in the world they're getting rid of. And they're replacing them with third world farmers. Which is fine, but I think farming should happen within its own country primarily.
And with the techniques and tactics, some that are centuries old, that have been used that work in that country, instead of people that have no idea what they're doing, taking over and not being able to produce as others could. Ethel says, do you remember that story when Tim Pool said that Kim Iverson stinks because she does not white?
We talked about that.
Yeah, Manny came into the comment section and confirmed that she stinks. He's detestable. I don't like Kim Iverson, so for me, that story was like, yeah, probably she does. But
no, I don't. I don't think she does, and I thought that was very bad that they
but
did
then
that.
Tim actually did clarify that he was using it as an example of the kinds of stories that Candace says and the non-repercussions that come after her for her blatant lies and her blatant fabrication of stories, anecdotes, and also what other people have or haven't done.
But we all know why Abby is attacking her. It's because he's very pro-Israel and she's very anti-Israel. We know why.
I
those
just think
issues
she
are
lies a
coming up.
lot and she fabricates things.
I don't think she lies at
Candace.
all. I don't think she does.
She connects things that don't
No,
connect.
she doesn't.
If you have a working brain, it doesn't connect sometimes.
My brain does work and it does connect.
I know your brain.
You stink.
Sure. The girl that puts on a bunch of perfume every day. Showers twice a day.
To cover up your stink.
Thank you. Phil also says about Avi, and he's bought by Israel, just as Rebel News. Unfortunately, there I would also agree with you.
Yeah, but
no
I will say
hold
that.
on, let me finish the comment. No reasonable person should care about any of Israel's problems. Let them figure it out with or without our money. Avi is part of the problem. And I do agree. Stop funding whatever Israel. Let them fight it out with Palestine, see who wins, whatever, and stop sending money from other countries and support and etc. But also stop making it the only talking point that the conservatives have right now.
It's not. It's not. No, it's not.
Yes,
and I will say this about Rebel News. Yeah, I do think they're bought and paid for by Israel, but a lot of their stories don't have to do with Israel, and they do a ton. They do a ton of good reporting, especially in a country like Canada, where there's very little right-wing media.
And they have fought for.
They have fought for, and they fought to get into different debates in Canada. The government is coming down so hard right now. If some of this legislation passes, a lot of what Rebel News did would be criminalized, and they're going to be up for arrest. So I do, even if they are bought and paid by Israel, Israel has to do with very few of their stories. A lot of their stories have to do with Canadian politics, and very few people actually have the balls to stand up in Canada in a public-facing manner and speak up against the government.
I mean, Ezra Levant is Jewish, so of course they're going to focus some of it on Israel. Non says, that is so insane. Sure, just bring a stranger from a war-torn, traumatized war zone. From a war-torn, traumatized. Is it like an exchange program? I don't think anybody wants that. No, I think no UK citizens want to go to the war-torn country.
Well, and again, I'll state, they've already had multiple beheadings of people that have taken in immigrants to their house. And now they're suggesting that this is still a good policy. This is absolute gaslighting by the government. The government has something afoot here. And I'm connecting dots that you would say aren't there. I'm saying they're definitely there.
Well, no, there I would say it's pretty obvious what those dots are. Sean says, technology-wise, they are high-tech, but so are Australians, oddly enough. I'm guessing Canadians.
Canadians, Australians, and European farmers are very high-tech, yeah.
And Non says, yeah, the Five Eyes love to roll out new authoritarian tech and policies made by Israeli companies.
Yeah, Israel actually does have the most high-tech they're more high-tech than Silicon Valley. A lot of the technology actually comes to Israel, and it's funneled through Silicon Valley, so it doesn't look like it's coming out of Israel.
But as we were talking about the farmers, and
the next few stories are actually about the farmers. So,
from Inevitable West, quote, farmers across France and Europe continue to revolt against the EU. The majority stand with the farmers. And so do we.
So they had massive protests in Brussels, but these are continuing on, and I'm glad to see it. There's no people. These are just tires being burned. They were having massive blockades as well.
That was Rosalia's newest song, if anybody cares. I don't know why I know that. It keeps showing up on my YouTube, but they should keep protesting, continue to protest. And again, this is a global thing. We just saw farmers protest here in Mexico, not for the exact same issues, but very similar.
Farmers are under attack.
And farmers have to understand it's global what they're trying to do.
Yeah, farmers are under attack on a global basis right now, but the tip of that spear is the EU. So we really need to watch what happened to the farmers in the EU. we've shown in the past, people are coming out in the EU saying they can no longer speak openly on social media without fear of arrest. So small channels, we're based in Mexico. If you're in Canada, the United States, or other countries that can still speak freely, I highly, highly encourage you to speak about what's going on with the farmers within the EU, because they can't do it themselves anymore, and social media is blocking it.
And from No Farmers, No Food, quote, Keir Starmer came and told the farmers that we would not have any tax rises. He betrayed us. He lied to the British public.
Basically, the government, Keir Starmer came and told the farmers at the NFU conference that we would not have any tax rises. Right. And he sat in the hall in front of 3,000 NFU members and lied for an hour. And he's betrayed us. He's lied to the British public. And I don't own my farm. I'm only the caretaker for the next generation. Yeah. My parents did without in the 70s to keep our farm so we didn't lose it. My great-uncle died on the battlefields of Flanders to keep our farm. Our farm was bombed and strafed by the Germans during the Second World War, and we didn't lose our farm. And we're not going to sit down idly to lose our farms. And if Keir Starmer sold every farm in the UK, there will still not be enough money for the National Health Service. And the farmers can't pay for all their mistakes. And it's about time the people of this country woke up. You need farmers. We produce cheap, healthy, good food.
And Donald Trump's trying to get rid of taxes. And if his policy works with the tariff, I hope it does. I hope it sets an example for other countries. And even if you can't afford to get rid of all taxes, there's one group that should have to pay no tax, and that is farmers. They feed the nation. They should be able to run their farms without taxes, period. Farmers, blue-collar workers, specifically truckers, are the heart of any nation. They should be supported by the government. Reform UK is a lot like Poilievre is in Canada. He's not as far right as we want, but it's the best they got. It's time to vote Reform UK in and hope for a change. They're at least giving lip service. Hopefully we can hold their feet to the fire, and they'll have to follow through with some good policies and protect farmers.
And again, the failed model of socialized medicine, as we see in Canada, as we see in the UK, has to change as well. And the fact that they want to go after food, as the gentleman said, healthy food that actually provides for the people of the country, by the people of that same country, is insane. And it seems like a very sinister plan. And
they're taking from...
They said they were going to increase taxes. Of course, that's what they always do. That's what all socialist governments have to do, is increase taxes to pay for their own mistakes.
There should be no taxes on farmers, period, globally. This should be a fundamental policy of anybody that wants to run a government.
Mm-hmm. And someone that has been speaking up a lot for a long time, and that all the way back in the bad times of 2020, I used to follow her and admire her as well. And she's gotten bigger, but also more threats, is Dutch Eva Vladingerbroek. I can never say her name properly, but she exposes the EU's war on farming. And she's been doing this for a long time now. It's from base Hungary. If it plays.
So the global war on farming that I've spoken many times about is still very much alive and kicking. This time I wanted to come to you with an update specifically about what's going on with the UK farmers. Keir Starmer, arguably the worst politician right now, the worst government leader in Europe, has decided to specifically target family farms by introducing a new inheritance tax law, which essentially means that any farmer in the United Kingdom who, when he dies, wants to pass on his farm to his children, like the farm has been passed on to him or to her.
What they want to do is industrialize farm. If they control the food, they control the people. This is their plan.
For probably centuries on end. Now won't be able to do that without having his kids pay 20% of inheritance tax on any assets that this farm has, or any worth that this farm has that supersedes £1 million. And now, of course, Keir Starmer's government is banking on the fact that you're going to think, oh, but it means that it will only target very rich farmers. Wrong. Anyone who knows any farmers or knows anything about farming in the 21st century knows that farmers aren't, especially family farmers, are not rich people. They are people who work their asses off 24/7 to provide you with food, and that they are not making a whole lot of profit on their work, if they're making any profit at all, but that the only wealth, quote unquote, that they have is actually their land. I'm talking to you right now from my family farm, and their machinery. And with that, you'll easily get to that threshold of £1 million. So most family farms, even the smallest ones, will be affected by this inheritance tax. And now I think inheritance tax in and of itself is a despicable communist ideal. Like, why does the state have any claim to make to your property when you die? Why wouldn't that be just for your kids. Why wouldn't that just go to your kids? Beats me. But anyway, that's the communist ideal, of course, also of Keir Starmer. And so this new inheritance tax will specifically kill off family farming in the United Kingdom. And I've already seen heartbreaking reports now of a farmer this morning who, upon hearing this news about the inheritance tax, has hung himself. And that's something that sadly I've heard about many times also in the Netherlands, because like I said, this is a global war on farming. This is happening all around the Western world. And the goal is, of course, to kill off family farming, to kill off small businesses like this, so that the government can control the food and control the people. Because what will be left? Family farms like this won't exist anymore on this trajectory, with this trajectory. The only thing that will be left are state-controlled, centralized farms where they can, of course, manipulate your food, control the market, and control you, control what you eat, when you eat. And that's why I really hope that the UK farmers will rise up, just like the Dutch farmers have done, the German farmers have done, and the French, because God knows this fight is far from over.
Some tractors have arrived.
Okay, that's good. And it's important they continue. It's not just that she's saying the Dutch farmers stood up. They're still having to stand up every day. They've managed to knock down a couple policies, but the government keeps trying to shove these policies in, much like in Canada with censorship policies. They try to pass a big bill, it fails, so they do one policy at a time, and they keep pushing that policy through there till they get what they want, which is industrial farming controlled by the government. There's no room for anything else, because if there are these family farms, there's now another alternative. People can go directly to their farm, especially if there's a crisis. If the government can create a crisis and then control your food, they can control how you act and react, and they can control your behavior.
And it is all also connected, again, not just with farming globally, where governments are doing this, not just in the UK, the Netherlands, but everywhere else, but it is also part of that plan. And it has a lot to do also with digital ID, digital currency, and the technocratic communist states that they want a global communist state that they're trying to form, and having control of food is one of the most important things that you can have control of as a government. And that should scare the crap out of everybody.
Okay, let's go into the last two stories of the day here.
From Britain is Broken. Very true. Says, quote, Labour says anyone who criticizes immigration is a threat to the UK because they want to put them in your houses. So the unknown foreign men who break into the country and rape children aren't an issue, but the people who are concerned about it are.
And you have to realize, as soon as you allow hate speech laws into your country or specialty group laws into your country, they can now expand those. They can make anything you say against immigration hate speech. So then you cannot actually speak against immigration itself if you're running for office, if you're a politician or anything else. It's considered hate speech if you speak against immigration. That's the goal here. It's not there yet, but that's their goal. That way, politicians like Nigel Farage and Reform UK won't be able to speak against this.
The new head of Britain's equalities watchdog, who was chosen by Labour insiders, has said anyone who raises concerns about migration is a risk to Britain.
Yeah, she sounds nice, doesn't she? She's Dr. Mary-Ann Stevenson, and she is also a big supporter of the European Convention on Human Rights. Now, her intervention is already drawing sharp criticism from parties like Reform UK. What are we going to say about them? But let's go to political commentator Suzanne Evans on all of this. And I'm just.
And they're currently trying to delay all of the elections in the UK until 2029. And in my opinion, illegally, but if they can delay them until 2029 and then pass hate speech laws against speaking up against immigration, it's going to be very hard to speak about these issues in those elections.
Just pointing out what this lady is all about. And what is her problem? How can she be in a neutral role, this Dr. Mary-Ann Stevenson, when she's basically saying, if you don't agree with me, you're on the naughty step?
Well, you say it's a neutral role, but let's not forget how this role comes to be. It's one that's appointed by the Prime Minister. So Sir Keir Starmer himself has appointed her to this position. And she does have a long history of left-wing politics. She's been a member of the Fawcett Society, which is very much a left-wing institution. And that's the sort of person she is. So on the one hand, we have Sir Keir Starmer talking daily about the boats being a problem, about smash the gangs, which he has previously criticised for being the wrong approach. And now here she is in this position. So once again, we have this sort of two-tier Keir ideology ideology, don't we? On the one hand, he says one thing, and then on the other, his actions seem to suggest that he actually thinks something very, very different. One thing I might want to say in favour of Dr. Mary Ann Stevenson is that she's been criticised by the gay, lesbian, bisexual magazine Pink News for being supportive of organisations like the LGB Alliance, which has spoken out against the fact that trans people are said to be allowed to go into women's changing rooms and so on and so forth. She said that she doesn't think this is the right approach. So on that sense, perhaps she's out of kilter with some thinking.
So she's a feminist.
But certainly on migration, I think people are going to be absolutely astonished.
Okay.
That being said, you really have to watch these hate speech laws, and Keir Starmer speaks out of both sides of his mouth like every globalist politician in the EU right now. Trump comes over there, no, we have 100% free speech. We don't censor anybody, when Trump's standing next to him. And then the next day he's implementing censorship and hate speech laws against the people themselves. Okay, let's go into the last story of the day, and China made the list today.
Yes, I'm wondering if this might be AI, but I don't know. Just from reading it. From Defense Intelligence, quote, China unveils game-changing next-gen air defense system. Beijing just dropped a bombshell, a highly maneuverable next-generation air defense system that can dynamically alter its trajectory mid-flight to precisely intercept aerial threats. This beast combines cutting-edge mobility, advanced guidance, and unmatched agility, making it nearly impossible for incoming targets to evade. A major leap in layered defense tech ready to dominate modern skies.
The U.S. has similar technology to this, so I would think this is actually real. But
And then again, did they steal the plans to make it?
Pause it for a quick sec, and we'll continue to play it. Leave it here. But you see how it shoots up and then it shoots to the side? What that does is it stays low to the ground so it can avoid radar detection.
I took the sound out just because music. Don't want to get YouTube angry at us.
Okay, and that's pretty good. I will say this. China is advancing militarily. That being said, a lot of their military progression is actually very defensive, meaning they have the largest navy in the world at this point because they can produce more boats. The problem with a lot of those boats, the majority of the boats can't go more than 200 kilometers off the coast other than their shipping freighters. So they're not really a threat on a global scale, but they are able to defend their own coasts. Yeah. Okay, that's it for me.
I could go on, like, to say,
go ahead.
China steals plans and they probably didn't design it themselves, if it even actually does work how they're saying it does. But
yeah, but
that was the end of my spiel.
Okay, the United States is the one that empowered them by giving them all their manufacturing in the first place with the neoliberal order. So they should never empower China in the first place. Now they have to deal with what they kind of built.
Yeah, but let them deal with them.
Okay.
Ethel says, by the way, huge shout out to Billboard Chris, who recently gave a speech in Brussels on an EU panel. Yes, we played it. Funnily enough,
we played it. We actually used to work with him. You built his website as well.
Yeah, I was helping him out when he was first getting bigger in Vancouver. Then he started traveling all over the place, so he went on for it by himself. But I still said, I'm really proud of him, and I do hope he continues to go on because it's not just a Canada-U.S. problem. It's going on everywhere. Just now, right here in Mexico, they're starting to put the genderbread person in public school textbooks that are mandated by the government. And this is just starting over here. So, I mean, Billboard Chris will have a job for a very long time.
Yeah, but it's nice to see people like Billboard Chris because he does something so simple. He just puts the billboard, has conversations with people, films it, puts it online. It has a big influence, and it shows how normal people can have a big impact just by doing small things.
Exactly.
So, and I think that's the lesson to take. Not saying that you have to put a billboard on yourself, but sometimes just think about small actions you can do, and that kind of pushes back. And more people start doing things like that.
And talking to people, talking to your friends and family members, stop being scared of having those tough conversations or where you actually give your opinions, because you might find that a lot more people agree with you than you thought.
Maybe at Christmas.
Yeah, maybe at Christmas, keep it civil.
Yeah.
But after Christmas. And during New Year's, I guess. Ethel also says, farmers will have succumbed to big food. You'll give them zero tax and big food will come in and buy all of them and take over their industry completely. That's probably halfway done by now.
Yeah, but there can be a pushback, and I think overall, I would like to see a migration from the cities back to the countrysides. It's going to have to involve government supports where they give subsidies to help give down payments for maybe land and stuff like that. A lot of people in cities do not actually like living in the cities. And if they can be self-sufficient on farmland, that would be nice. The government is actually responsible for how loans are given out and the pricing of a lot of land and stuff like that. So I could see if conservative governments can kind of get in, they can make it more financially viable to move into the countryside and start your own farms.
And Non says, concur, it's so wild, gaslighting at the highest level. Rafa says, yeah, a lot of security and automation companies come from Israel. And that's a thing I think not a lot of people know about. Sean says, if all countries adopted more protectionist tariffs, it would make it far more difficult to go after farmers in the EU, UK, or Canada.
Yeah, well, Israel also owns a lot of Silicon Valley, and they smuggle their technology through there. They allow certain companies to have their technology for an ownership stake. So, but they don't want to. They don't want to be at the front-facing operatives of those companies in Silicon Valley. So it's a good arrangement for them, I would think, especially when so much technology does actually come out of Israel.
Mm-hmm. And Sean says the left needs control. It's all about control with 15-minute cities, social credit scores, eating bugs. Trump coming out for nuclear fusion power won't be tolerated by the left. And
yeah, if this push can keep happening in Central and South America, these right-wing parties getting in and they stick to Trump's plan of Western Hemisphere cooperation amongst ideologically aligned countries, the future could look really good for the Western Hemisphere.
And Non says, hold on, my God, these countries have gone mad. Yes. Non also says there really is no left in the United States. Neoliberals are not leftist.
I think neoliberals, well, I think it's a uniparty. And I think that's why this Trump movement and why these midterms are so important. We have to elect America First candidates that aren't aligned with the uniparty or aren't neocons, that are kind of independently funded, not through lobbyists like the Israeli lobby or the Egyptian lobby or whatever lobby it is, but $5 and $10 donations actually coming from the people would be nice to see. This is Marjorie Taylor Greene was one of those candidates that was kind of independently funded.
Sean says, that's cool. It won't help them take Taiwan, about the Chinese, things like that.
There's more and more pressure being put on Taiwan. That being said, there is a behind-the-scenes alliance kind of happening between Russia, China, and the United States. Not that they're in complete cooperation or it's open trade routes, but they're trying to isolate Europe and trying to stop that war from escalating into a broader war. If they can cooperate on that, maybe they can come to some kind of negotiation with Taiwan. I mean, the chip factories are now being rebuilt in the United States. That's going to take 4 or 5 years. So, but once those factories are built, who knows what the future is.
Then Non says, continues, MLK Jr. was the last real leftist. He was made to be unalived for his poor people's campaign.
Yeah. RFK Jr.?
MLK,
yeah.
Martin
Luther King.
Jr. Sean says, going to have to lower gas prices if people...
He was shot in the neck as well.
With a 30 odds.
Yeah.
Sean,
but don't compare him to Charlie Kirk, please.
Sean
That's
said,
what they say.
Yeah. Sean says, going to have to lower gas prices if people are going to move to the country, going to need tractors and trucks. And again, we are kind of seeing that in the U.S., at least an effort or an attempt to do it, but really nowhere else.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting because the neoliberal order was all based on energy scarcity, and the conservative or the America First movement is based on excess and technological advancements. And now with these two big fusion companies kind of coming out, that could potentially solve all the energy needs of not only the United States, but potentially the world. If that's the case, that would completely destroy the economic framework, the neoliberal order built on energy scarcity, carbon credits, and everything else that went into that, like ESG and different kind of banking investments that were based upon energy scarcity.
And Sean says USA needs to leave NATO.
Yeah, they need to leave NATO and the EU needs to break up. The Eastern European countries need to leave while it's still plausible before they get dragged into a war. A lot of the Eastern European countries still get oil from Russia, so they're on good terms. If they separate from the EU, they can expand that trade so they can have good relations, especially if the US comes into that trading bloc, which Trump has said he's very interested in having Eastern Europe separate from the EU and trading with Russia and the United States together.
But now we're heading into the holiday season, and we just want to wish you and your family a very Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. We will be here back on Friday.
And
we're just taking up
Wednesday. We're going to post a video tomorrow as well.
Yes, we will have a video tomorrow and on Wednesday and on Thursday, but no live because we're doing Christmas. And we hope when you do Christmas with your family, you're all very merry and very blessed. So thank you for being here. Wishing you all the best as well, to you and your families. And thank you so much to Nan, Sean, Rafa, Ethel, and I think that was it for all your comments. It really does help move the show along. I mean, we did 3 hours today, which was not planned.
Yeah, the shows are getting longer because we're getting comments, and we really do like the comments. It gives it a much better flow and helps me talk about broaden the subjects. Rather, a lot of the times I'm doing the news, I'm caught in the news, like go to the next story.
He doesn't like to talk to me.
It gets you stink.
Thank
Starting a rumor here.
There's no way to go into the Christmas season. Sean,
I'm the Grinch.
That is true though. Sean says Merry Christmas. Rafa says Merry Christmas, guys. Thank you. And Nan says Merry Christmas, everyone. Great show. Shen says good show. Thank you so much, and thank you for all your support. If you haven't subscribed or liked, please do so here on YouTube and on RUMBLE. We're also there. Thank you, Ethel, so much for your comments there as well. And we'll see you on Friday. Have a great week and Merry Christmas once again.
Yeah, and hopefully the Canadian government doesn't get rid of Christmas in Canada.
They already did. You have to say Happy Holidays now. That's why I make a point of saying Merry Christmas.
Okay, let's end the show.
Bye. Merry Christmas. Oh, hold on. How do I turn this off?